CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest. CMJ's Epic Quest.
Hey everybody, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. I am Jay Rule, as always, and alongside me here is
Derek Cronus, or Derek, and we've got two pretty awesome guests with us today. We've got Nate and Matt from Podcast of the Fallen. Got both of them here.
Woohoo.
Hello.
We're here. We made it.
We made it. How's it
We're in
going,
the big,
fellas?
It's going pretty good. We're in the big leagues now, so feel kind of proud about that.
Oh, I don't know about that. But yeah, hey, I appreciate the vote of confidence.
You've got one
if
more
we're
interview
gonna-
with Erickson than we do, so
Oh, that's
Yeah.
fair. That's fair.
And I saw y'all's document, so I mean, I feel like I need to start taking at least some decent notes now of something.
Sometimes it's really hard to paraphrase things, and I think we both, I mean, sometimes a lot of it, not a lot of it, but in some cases, some of that stuff is like word for word, just because how could you write it any differently or any better, or make it summarize it more briefly and where it makes sense. It's tough.
Yeah, I mean, like when I'm writing these summaries, I feel like a fourth grader just discovering how to write. So, comparatively to Mr. Erickson here, I try to write it in a way where, like, I would understand if someone was reading it to me. He's really good with his words, so it's one of those things where, like, dumb it down is probably the wrong way to say it, but just for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
he's one hell of a writer, that's for sure.
Yes.
I was just saying, indeed, he is a hell of a writer. But Nate, Matt, I know we've shouted you guys out on our show before, but if you guys want to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourselves and your show, all that good stuff.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah. You can go first this time.
Okay. So I am I guess what you would say the Malazan vet on our show. This is my experience with the series is weird because the first time I read the series up to Toll the Hounds and that stopped because life got in the way. So this is my fourth time for books 1 through 8 and my third time for books 9 through 10 when we eventually get there. I've read all the other books in the world once each, and I think Matt and I have decided that we're going to go through those as well, go through the Ian C. Esselmont stuff when we get there. But Matt was about to start the series because I had hyped it up a lot for him, specifically by telling him that there were undead dinosaurs with swords for arms. And
Good. Bring it in. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's what ultimately hooked him into wanting to read it. And then I texted him and said, hey, crazy idea, but do you want to do a podcast? And Matt, for some reason, said yes.
I know how
did.
that.
Yeah. Luckily,
Yeah.
Matt, we both have a friend who is tech savvy and takes care of the editing and everything.
I know. I was like, I would not be able to do this if I had to do all the editing. I would lose my mind listening to my own voice on repeat. I don't know how Nate does it, but yeah. Well, I'm Matt. I guess I'll properly introduce myself. I'm the newbie. I know nothing about the series except that there's undead dinosaurs and it sounded really cool in a lot of other aspects. Basically, kind of what happened is I finished reading like all of the mainline Cosmere Sanderson stuff over the summer. And then I was like, well, what should I read next? And I saw was at the bookstore. I was like, I'll just get because they had Gardens of the Moon there. So I picked it up. And I told Nate, I'm like, hey, I'm going to start it soon. And then that's when he texted me shortly after about the podcast. And I was like, you know what? I hear this is a pretty complex series. I'm sure I'd get lost and confused. So, I mean, it probably won't be a bad idea. And school coming up, it'll probably keep me trucking through and keeping on track. And so, yeah, that's why I'm here. Because, I don't know, Nate convinced me.
Well, I've had a lot of fun listening to you guys, and now I'm bummed I've got like probably one more episode of yours I'll be able to listen to as you guys are passing us by here. But it is really cool that Nate, yeah, you're still the vet here, but the three of us, Justin, Matt, that we're all on the same page. We've all read to the same point now, and it's been a lot of fun watching you guys catch up to us and listening to your reactions and what you guys have to say. And so I hope we'll have a lot of fun talking tonight.
Yeah.
So, Matt, what do you think about the complex story so far? Like, do you feel it's complicated? Do you feel like some of your maybe preordained expectations are coming true? Or do you feel like it's a little easier than you thought?
I'd say it's a mixed bag sometimes. Because, like, I feel like definitely book one's a bit confusing just because, like, the pacing and just the structure of it all. And then book two was kind of like a nice, refreshing read of like, okay, so this is what he looks like polished up a bit with his writing. So I think overall there is a deep complexity, as I feel like we've all seen, of like just the storytelling, the different POVs, the different like philosophical ideas running through the different themes. In terms of the story, I feel like it's not too bad to follow. Like for the most part, like I'm following along and like being entertained as I go. But I think the real complexity that lies, which I think makes it hard for a lot of people, is just like the naming of everything and just remembering so many different names, so many different characters, and then hopping between the POVs with all the different characters. We talked about this, it was last night actually, when we record like about chapter 7, and I was about to start reading before I went to bed because I was like, oh, I'll just start going this and I'll read it tomorrow morning while I'm on the train. And as soon as I read the first page, I was like, I can't do this. There's like 4 new names on here. I'm not going to be able to keep track of this before I go to sleep. So I think it's like it's definitely a lot more of a complex. It's complex enough where I feel like, okay, this is kind of what I expected. Like it's not over the top, but I think there's a lot of details in there that I've definitely missed that I would not have gotten without Nate kind of being like, hey, what do you think of this? Or like, did you catch this? And it's nothing like terribly spoilery or anything, but it's just like helping me understand more of the story and the structure of the plot and how the characters interact with each other, which I think could be kind of a big turnoff for some of those that aren't used to big complex fantasy series, just reading it on their own. So I could definitely see why people are like, it's complex, it's hard to get through. Those are my thoughts. I don't know if those made sense, but
No, it made a ton of sense. I mean, I felt similar. Gardens of the Moon, I felt I was a little more confused. But then, of course, we got into Dead House Gates, and I'm like, as you said, just kind of him coming out as a writer, much more fleshed out. And I don't know, things just started to like pop in place for me, so to speak.
Mhm.
But I do enjoy when there are veterans joining us because you'll probably be annoyed at the end of the night by me asking a bunch of stuff. You're like, I can't answer that, Justin.
Go it. Telling Matt Raffo is one of my favorite things on the podcast. Like,
yeah.
maybe that's petty of me to be like, I know this and you don't, but it's
Derek does
really
it to me all
fun.
the time. It's fine. And he doesn't know.
Oh, yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, I don't know either, but yeah, I feel like that's kind of the running joke for us is we got to have a read and find out at least once an episode, once a chapter, at least.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's legit. Well, I suppose we should talk about Silverstone's books here. Oh, Nate, you never introduced yourself. My apologies. Go ahead and
I introduced myself before Matt went.
I must have missed something. Okay. All right.
No, you're good. You're good.
I'll find out when I edit. I'll be like, wow.
Oh, Matt, Justin, obviously you know about this, and Nate, you've seen it on Facebook, but check this thing out that Justin sent me.
Hey, there we go.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's nice.
So Derek, I guess, Patreons will be able to view this. That's what I was thinking about, is adding another tier where you would get a t-shirt or a water bottle, something like that. So
Cool.
Sorry, Matt, I'm not as good of a co-host. I didn't get you a shirt for Christmas.
Hey, it's okay.
I'm just disappointed. I'm dropping out.
I didn't get Justin anything either. I wasn't expecting. He's just like, "What's your address?" One day, I'm like, "What are you sending me?" And he's like, "You'll see."
It's a dildo, Derek. That's what I sent you.
Matt, I guess I'll warn you now. I do remember hearing on one of you guys' episodes saying that Nate said that you don't swear. It will happen here, so I hope we don't scare you off or offend you.
I mean, I went through middle school and high school. I feel like I've heard most things. So
Gotcha.
I feel like middle schoolers and high schoolers are a bit more creative than we are these days. So,
it's true.
where are y'all calling in from again?
Utah.
Ooh,
Utah.
very cool. I've never been out that way. I've always wanted to go out west, do something.
I just had a almost 4-year-old beer that was from Utah tonight that my mom had.
Oh, nice.
Salt Fire Brewing or something, I think it was called. Was the brewery?
I've only heard of a couple, but I don't know if I've ever heard that one.
I might not be right on the name. I don't remember, but it was
Yeah.
Salt something. It was in Salt Lake. I don't know where you guys are in Utah, if you're in Salt Lake or somewhere else, but
Yeah, we're in the Salt Lake Valley.
gotcha.
Very cool. Well, before we get started in today's episode, we'd like to take a moment to thank and recognize Silverstone's Books. They do actually have a physical storefront, so feel free to stop on by if you're in the area. Otherwise, you can check out their website at silverstonesbooks.com, where they have a large selection of fantasy, sci-fi, and horror books, with the option of many signed copies at pretty decent prices. The story carries a large number of indie authors. Help us help them in supporting self-published authors. Also, they've been gracious enough to give us a promo code for 10% off your next order. That code is DJ Quest. So check out their site, check out their storefront, and pick up a book and save some cash.
Nicely said. Our patrons, this is going to feel a little different tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got Jan, the picker of pies, Luciana Etrigan, Ryan, the topological, Damien, the rock of faces, Nate, fiddle me this. Hey, you're right in front of me.
I'm here.
Shield Anvil Dylan. You're here. That's pretty cool.
Can I ask where you came up with the nickname? Is that in the story, or is that just
No, so Fiddler is my favorite character, and that was just I saw, hey, that this phrase just popped into my head, and that kind of rhymes with Fiddler, so I'll go with it.
Oh, the riddle me this?
Yeah, riddle me this, fiddle me this. So
That's awesome.
I just came up with it on the fly.
I don't even remember what riddle me this is from. Is that a Batman? Batman Forever or something?
I don't know. I think it might just be
This is my
the
problem.
the first use comes from a 1693 English poem, which is a translation of ancient Roman satire.
Okay.
So not Batman.
wouldn't have
Usually
guessed
what you're
Batman.
saying.
It would have been cooler if it would have
That was the easy answer. Not Batman.
1600s.
Well, I guess this is a little different tonight. Did you guys, I mean, we wrote these summaries. Usually Justin and I read them. I don't know if you guys had any interest in reading them along with us, switching out or anything, or if you just want us to do it and then we just talk about it. But I think we can make whatever work.
I'm down to read a section or two.
Okay. No pressure or anything, Matt, if you are not interested in doing that. Yeah, I guess, do one of you guys want to start this off?
Sure, I can start out.
Just throwing Hail Marys here.
Cool. Should I do the epigraph first?
I'll take the epigraph. It's cool.
Okay,
Sure.
sounds good.
This one's a
We didn't talk about any of this.
Yeah,
So it's just
all improv.
That's okay.
Going back to our comment at the beginning, where 90% of it is just whatever, right?
yeah.
Epigraph for Chapter 8 from Malazan's Memories of Ice. Harder the world, the fiercer the honor. Dancer.
That's such a good quote.
That's a great one.
Should I just go into it, I guess?
Take her away.
Gethel struggled to climb over the hills made of bones. The blood from his mangled face had now dried, though his vision was still obscured. Mumbling to himself, he said vanity was not his curse, and that there was no predicting mortal humans. Not even Hood himself could have imagined such insolence. Though now the herald's face is broken, and what is broken must be thrown away. Gethel took in the endless hills and sky, the cool dead air, and of course the bones. Gethel, speaking to no one but at Hood, said he appreciated his joke. Tossed in this heap, and now he has to crawl free from his service. He opened his warren, looking into the nearly airless realm that was Omtos Falak. He said he knew who or what Hood was, and the irony was delicious. He wondered if Hood really knew him in return. He stepped into his warren, ice walls on both sides of him. He didn't sense any eye mass or other types of intrusion, but the magic still felt weakened here, and he knew Omtos Falak was dying a slow death. Whispering, he said, they were almost done. Spiraling down into oblivion, shall he unleash his rage? No, he would not, as it was never enough. He continued walking until an unexpected fissure appeared in his path, heat and the smell of rot and decay rising from its depths. Gethel probed with his senses and said that he had not been idle. He wondered about this invitation before him and said that he was of this world. However, this stranger he spoke to was not. He said he was no longer Hood's herald. He was dismissed. And so what would the chained one say to him? Gethel entered the fissure as this was the only way he would receive an answer.
You read that better than Derek would have.
I have practiced reading summaries on our show.
That was great. Thank you very much, Nate.
You did do a good job, and I will say I set a low bar. So
Fair enough.
A few of my thoughts here, just the name Gethal, just I think of the Geth from Mass Effect. I don't know if any of you guys ever played those games.
No.
I've played 4 hours of the first game once, like 3 years ago.
Only 4 hours?
Only 4 hours, but Mass Effect that's the start. Like that feels like the very start of the game, 4 hours in.
It's been a long time since I played it, but yeah.
You got 4 hours on me. I have not played it.
I think that's because it's only on Xbox.
Is it?
Whoops.
Maybe you can play it on PC, but I don't know if it's on PlayStation. Maybe it is. I don't know.
I played it on my PS4.
Oh, okay. So clearly I'm wrong. They did do a remaster, Justin, not terribly long ago. I'm sure it's probably not very expensive now, but it was.
Sorry, go ahead. My bad.
No, you're good.
I was just going to ask, is it a first-person shooter?
No, it's third person over the shoulder type thing.
Gotcha.
I believe.
Maybe
I think so. Next, sorry, I've got the document up now. I can't see the camera, so if you guys have something, just jump right in. Somebody was saying something. I didn't mean to interrupt whoever that was.
Oh, I did just want to ask, what did you guys think of Gethel saying that he now knows who and what Hood is?
I was wondering.
I was very curious. I didn't really know what to make of that. Justin, I don't know if you had any thoughts, but it was a statement that stuck out to me.
I definitely have thoughts, and the entire time, I think I reread this chapter about 3 times. Every time it came out, I just kept thinking about what little tidbits of information could potentially allude to a particular scenario, and I honestly couldn't come up with any of them. The only one that really comes to mind was Dasim's daughter and the relationship between Dasem and Hood, but outside of that, I got nothing. I think this is definitely between the two of us. It would be a Raffo moment. I'm assuming eventually I am just going to trust the process that eventually it will be revealed in due time. But I can't think of anything specific or hard cut evidence that would dictate who it is. I definitely don't think that Hood is Hood in my canon anymore. But what or who he is, I have no idea.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I had any clues either, but I feel like I thought more on the other side of things. So it's kind of alluded to, and it was one of my points. But so who is Gethal? I mean, is he something or someone else besides Gothos's brother and whatever a herald is? That's kind of where my head was stuck at.
I take it you're not going to answer that, Nate.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything.
I did have some thoughts on this because I was thinking along the same lines of you guys. I was like, there's literally no information here. What can we even? So I just started thinking of hypotheticals, and the only thought I had is it's more just I as well felt like it changed who I think Hood could possibly be. Then I think it brought him down into a more realistic realm of thinking. I feel like it showed now like maybe there's some like flaws in who he picks and stuff like that, and like that he's not like as I always felt like he was like omnipotent. Is that the right word? Like he was kind of an all-knowing god of death or something. But I feel like this moment showed like he maybe isn't, like because he had to yank out his herald and be like, all right, that didn't work. You're gone now. Like I'm gonna have to go get a new guy. But that was the only thought I had, because I was like, there wasn't much there except like, I don't know, just add like an ominous detail to him or something. But
Yeah, there really wasn't any, like you both said, there wasn't any hints there. So I guess I kind of just, I'm not even really that worried about it right now. Because like you said, Justin, I'm sure when the time comes, we'll know what we're supposed to know. So I guess for now, I'm fine waiting.
Yeah. The big question that I have about this really short section is the fact that like is this like a voluntary thing that Gethel is doing? Like, okay, well, this just fuck it. This isn't even worth it. I'm getting sword cut in the lips, and now I don't look that great, but who cares? Because vanity, isn't my curse or my burden to bear, or whatever he's talking about there. Is that him just like resignating? Or is that like, oh, I've failed Hood, so I'm kicked out? Like what are the events that prelude Gethel and his interaction with Barakalian? That's kind of like where I'm hung up on, is like how exactly is Gethel known that he's done with his service to Hood? Is this Hood's decision or is this Gethel's decision?
I mean, I think it was Hood's decision personally, just by like the reaction of everything and his kind of just like storming away, in a sense of just like, all right, I'm out of here, then I'm just go do something else. Like I feel like he's just kind of hopping around, just trying to make power plays or just be doing something. Because we see a bit later kind of like where he's been at in terms of the course of world events. So he's not exactly like a minor character in by the stretch of imagination world history. So I think it's just more he's like, all right, so this didn't work out and I'm going to move on, because he doesn't want me anymore because I didn't exactly do what he wanted. But I think it was Hood's decision, in my opinion, here to kind of get rid of him.
So you think it
I
was
guess
one of those things? Hood is telling Gethel that like, if you don't get Fenrir's gray swords to basically embody me, then you're out.
So I'll jump in here with a small thought. I do also think that if it was Hood's decision, it's a little bit more than just that he failed to get the gray swords. It's also the fact that he took Brukalian's insult, offered to fight him, and then when the Talanaima showed up, still didn't like disengage. He was prepared to like go to war in that chamber with all three Talanaima, and I don't think Hood really wants to take them on either.
Like he was too hot-headed for what Hood needed.
That's a good point. But I also feel like Hood, if there's anybody in the world that he should want the most, it should be the Talanimas, because they have essentially escaped death. You know what I mean? Like that would be like my number one goal if I was the god of death. Like, hey, you took an entire culture and you made them unobtainable to me. Like, I will find a way to get you. That's me. I'm, what do I know? I'm just a lowly little god.
I guess I feel maybe a little different. I feel like it was more Gethal's decision to leave. I don't, maybe it's just my way of thinking, but if Hood said, okay, you got to go get these guys, he has to assume that there's a chance he doesn't succeed. So, I mean, if he doesn't succeed, are you really just going to boot him? Maybe he would. I don't know. So I feel like, okay, well, Gethal didn't succeed. So he's like, you know what? Tired of this bullshit. I'm done.
How much of an importance does that place on obtaining the gray swords for Hood's service, though?
Are you asking me?
I'm just a general thought as you're talking, but yeah, I don't know. I guess it's not like explicitly written as to like what really occurred. I'm sure that more insight may happen. I will wait for that moment, but it's just like a little pin in this particular chapter in the book where I'm like, I'm gonna remember that as much as I can.
I was just like kind of skimming section 2 of the chapter, and I think it does answer some of that.
I must have missed it when I was. Well, then you might have to point that out to us. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, you're right.
I guess I've got 2 more thoughts here. One that I wrote down and one that I didn't. But you know, it's Githal is talking or thinking about these mountains of bones, and I just thought, man, there's all these bones here and no bone phone. Like, what gives? You could strap one together, maybe. I don't know.
The bone phone.
It's rather
Apparently,
unfortunate.
Githal is not a MacGyver type, I guess.
No.
Apparently not.
He doesn't seem like the kind of person. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would be fixing things. I feel like he'd be more like, I'm just going to borrow this, and you may get it back.
I was thinking similar thoughts, so that's great.
My other thought here, and Nate, I guess I don't know how much you'll be able to speak to it, but it talks about Amtos Falak and that it's dying. I feel like I assume that must be related to the Jaghut being hunted down, because we know there's not many of them left, right? I assume somehow that is tied hand in hand. The strength of the Warren must relate to the number of Jaghut that are left or around.
I would say that's a good assumption. To be quite honest, I don't know exactly why Erickson threw that detail in here that it's dying.
So it may not necessarily even be anything super important.
Yeah. I also don't know exactly why he says it's dying, but
I mean,
I don't know.
But
like,
it's,
isn't the Warren detached from the people in a sense? Like, it isn't the Warren where they build off their cultural identity or draw their power. So, like, couldn't it be probably an outside influence besides the Jaghut dying? I wonder.
Like what was mentioned in, I think, in the last chapter of Trake mentions destroying a Warren in the First Empire. So there can be outside influences that affect Warrens as well.
And I mean, who was it? The Rule as well mentioned like the poisoning of the Warrens from the.
Oh,
I never remember how to say their name.
Crippled God.
Penin.
I would say that's probably the explanation then.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, that was all that I had for that first section. Yeah, it was. I'm not so far in this book. I'm not used to very short sections to start things off. So it's kind of a nice change of pace. So I guess if you guys are ready to move on, I'd be ready to move on as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Matt, did you want to read, or are you cool if I go, or?
You can go this time. I can read another one.
Okay. I mean, I feel like some of the other ones are not as short as this one. So.
Either or, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. Well, again, no pressure. If you want to, great. If not, no worries. The Jaghut, with amusement, had seen that the crippled god had fashioned a small tent around his place of chaining. Gethal halted before the entrance and said out loud that he would not crawl and to lower the shroud. The tent shimmered and the crippled god was revealed. A brazier lifted smoke between them. A mangled hand reached out to fan the smoke into the hood-shadowed face. He said that the Jaghut's sudden lust for vengeance was felt, and the temper of the Jaghut endangered Hood's meticulous plans. It was this that disappointed the Lord of Death. His herald must be obedient and possess no mortal desires or ambitions. The crippled god said that this was not a worthy employer, especially for one such as Gethel. Gethel glanced around, not even acknowledging what was said, and stated that he felt heat beneath his feet. He says that they chained him to Burn's flesh and bone, and the crippled god has poisoned Burn. The crippled god said that he did, and left a festering thorn in her side, one that would eventually kill her, and then the world would die. He tells Gethel that these chains must be broken. Gethel laughed and said that all worlds die. He shall not prove to be the weak link, as he was there for the chaining. The creature hissed and said that he was already the weak link. Thinking that Gethal could earn Hood's trust, and what a failure that turned out to be. It was not the first failure. When his brother Gothos called upon him, Gethal interrupted him, saying, "Enough. And who really is the vulnerable one here?" The creature said that they both were, and raised his hands, and lacquered wooden cards appeared, their painted faces facing Gethel. The crippled god told him to behold the House of Chains. The Jaghut asked him what he had done. The crippled god responded and said that he was no longer an outsider, and the position of herald was vacant. Gethal grunted and said that it was more than just the herald. The crippled god said that these were the early days, and he wondered who would earn the right to be king of his house. Unlike Hood, he welcomes ambition and welcomes independent thought, even acts of vengeance. The Jaghut said that the deck would reject him, and his House of Chains would be assailed. The crippled god said that this was a given, but they both know that the entity of the deck is not some entity, and that the maker is dust. His explanation of the House of Shadow being newly resurrected. He tells Gethel that he needs him and his flaws. None among the House of Chains will be whole, in flesh or spirit. He tells the Jaghut to look upon the crippled god, as his house will reflect what he sees. He tells the Jaghut to gaze upon the world, the nightmare and pain that is the mortal realm. He tells Gethel that very soon his followers shall be a legion. He asks if Gethel doubts that. The Jaghut was silent for a long time, and then he growled. He told the crippled god his house has found a new herald, and what was it that he would have him do? As you pointed out, we do get our answer as to why Gethel is no longer in Hood's service. Sometimes I think of these sections as like very singular instead of a combined effort to form a chapter. Like, when I'm reading section 1 and talking about it, my mind is around just the events in section 1, and sometimes I forget to like, oh right,
The bigger picture.
right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The hard
See,
part about overthinking fucking everything.
I'm the reverse. I just forget what things happened where, so then I just jumble up the entire chronological order and start talking about the ending and confusing it with the beginning. So I mean, it's not too bad at least to think of and remember your sections.
That's fair. But I guess there's really no wrong way to do it. You
Yeah.
start at the beginning and talk to the end, or go to the end and backtrack. Nothing wrong with that.
It's true.
What I loved, just the crippled god and how he frames this whole conversation. And the whole time I'm thinking, oh, it's lost a herald, and just like the amount of convincing that the crippled god is doing is just like, I myself was convinced as a reader. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to fucking leave Hood right now. This sucks. So
Wait, so are you saying I was right, Justin?
you are right.
Fuck yeah, that like hardly ever happens in these books.
We didn't bet a pie on it, so I'm good.
No.
I wish we could bet pies on our podcast, but I would win every single one.
I was gonna say, why don't we? And then you said that, and I was like, oh yeah, no, you've read the book before.
Yeah. If you ever had a theory that you were dead set on and I accepted the bet, you would know that you were getting a pie in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
What you got to
That'd be
do,
cruel.
Matt, is
That
you
would
got to
be
trick him.
cool.
You got to trick him. When you say, take a bet, and he's like, no, that means you're right.
Well, there you go. Or I'll just cross my fingers and be like, it doesn't count.
I had my fingers crossed. There you go. That's good. The next thought I had was around this conversation about Gethel already being the weak link. A weak link to the ploy of keeping or chaining the crippled god, but the gods of this world, right? Like, I think this is what the crippled god is getting at, is that he is the weak link in the crippled god being chained by the other ascendants. And I'm still interested and wonder if this like first failure has something to do, on an unrelated note, like Icarium, as if Gethel is Gothos' brother, then that would mean Gethel is Icarium's uncle, right?
Yep.
So I'm wondering if that has anything to do with like Icarium's story as far as like the first failure. And obviously Gethel doesn't want to hear it. So, which is why he interrupts it. But it's very convenient for the writer to not even explain that, because I'm sure that is all due time. Yeah, I find it interesting that Gethel is the first weak link.
I don't really have anything to say.
Fair enough.
I think my main thing is, what did you guys think of the crippled god having some cards of the Deck of Dragons and calling it the House of Chains, which is the title of book 4?
I know Justin was excited about that, and I reread this chapter today a little bit at my lunch at work and then before we were recording. So I did not read your notes, Justin. So at the second time I reread it, I was like, oh shit, like these got to be the cards for Munug. But I do have a thought, but I would like to let you talk first.
Okay. So we talked about the cards being Munug, the House of Chains, cards of the Deck of Dragons with blatant faults, right? Like going back to chapter 2 in the recruitment of poor old Munug and his testicular cancer, balls. It was just interested, and I'm wondering if the fourth book will then be like the consequences of this house coming into existence. Like, I'm assuming that this is why the Azath have a need for the master of the deck, which could potentially thwart their crippled god. If I'm to understand the whole Azath and the holds and the houses and things like that. It's interesting from like a gaming or like a cards standpoint, right? If you were to take poker, the game of poker, and then all of a sudden introduce a new variable that basically kind of like destroys and fucks up the entire game. That's kind of like my headcanon around it. It's just really cool. So I'm wondering if like the fourth book, kind of going along with the whole Tavor, Felice, Haboboric storyline from Dead House Gates, we kind of get introduced to, this new house and some of the consequences and, the assailing that Gethel is talking about that, hey, they will never accept this. So you might be able to make it true. People are going to fight you for it.
What I found interesting was, and I don't remember if it was in this section or if it was later, but they talk about how everybody who will fill a role will like not be complete in like spirit or flesh, however it was worded. I can't remember exactly. Yeah. So Justin, I'm throwing it out here right now. I have a prediction.
Pie time?
Who will be the king? We already have a pie bet.
Well, you don't want to throw in another one? I took on 2.
Okay. Calor is going to be the king of the House of Chains.
Ooh. That's good. I'm not going to take that bet because I somewhat agree with you.
Okay, that's cool. That's my prediction, though. I mean, is there anybody who could be any less complete in flesh other than like a Talanimus than Calor?
I feel like he's the epitome of faults, right? Like, you think of faults, like Calor immediately comes to your mind. I don't know why I didn't think of that all the way in chapter 2 when Monig and the crippled god were talking.
We didn't know what the cards were going to be like used for, though. So, like, why would you have thought of it then?
I mean, we did know what they were going to be used for. We just didn't know that it was going to be the House of Chains. We knew that there was some type of game at play, if I'm recalling that conversation correctly. But yeah, that's crazy. That is crazy. But, on top of that, Crippled God and Getho talk about, they both know that the entity of the deck is not, the maker of it is dust, right? Yeah. And he gives the example of House of Shadow, right? And I have a theory that they essentially took over the Tisti Edur Warren and renamed it the House of Shadow. So I think that what is happening here is the Crippled God has found a way in to play the game in this realm, thus the House of Cards. But on top of that, he knows there's no authoritative force to say, no, you can't come in because the maker is dust. And I'm wondering, so because Cruel or K-Rule being cursed into not being remembered is a consequence of the Warrens and the houses, as since he's been forgotten, he can no longer control what he's been made. Because in the chapter 7 where Lady Envy meets up with him in Cala? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Thank you. And he kind of gives her this like vision. He basically says like, I am the two halves of the heart. The power is the blood that flows through my veins and arteries. So I kind of get the sense that he's like the head honcho. He's the number one of the elder gods type of thing. Whether that's right or not, I don't care. But I think it's an interesting theory, and it helps me out here.
Yeah, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but going along with that, like the crippled god thinking that there's no one that can like oppose him, I would say that maybe that's the reason why Perron being the master of the deck is so important and why that's coming into play.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Like you guys were talking, like I didn't even think along those lines at all. So you guys bringing that up, it reminds me of the Azath houses in book 2, where they just see all these different like cards and stuff like laid out. And so it's like, I feel like the deck being ever changing and like just constantly evolving and constantly like having new things arise and old things go away, that he's just forcing himself into this of like, all right, I got my imperfect cards. I'm going to start building up my house in this game. So I now have my herald and things like that. And that's why in chapter 7, I think Gruul was like, hey, you need to keep Talk the Younger safe because he is very much a prime target. Because I mean, we've seen inside his head, and we know like he very much feels like a broken person in a lot of aspects. Like he's lost an eye, so physically he's broken, but at the same time, mentally, like he kind of like he's like kind of like the two-edged sword of that. Like physically, mentally, everything. Like he has his flaws, and so you think the crippled god's gonna be like, hey, this guy's looking kind of nice. He looks like he'll fit nicely into my house, you know? And so I think that's the crippled god is just starting to piece together everything. So I think your Calor idea is not too bad, especially because we see a bit later a lot of the back at the camp for everyone, they're starting to give the side eye to Calor and being like, all right, if he even so much like twitches a muscle the wrong way, he's out of here. You got not Akarium, what's his name? Anmander Rake being like, hey, we're going to unleash all of our power on him, like if need be. So I think you're not wrong in thinking that.
He is, I don't know. I like him, but I definitely don't trust him. So I feel like I could see it. So we'll see.
Well, I feel like based on the events that happen in this chapter and events that happened in the last chapter, I think that what the crippled god is doing is he's targeting the gods of war, right? Like he's targeting Fenner and he's targeting Treach. And so from what I understand about chapter 7 is that Talk is essentially Treach reborn or soul shifted or whatever the case may be. So if Cruel is essentially trying to be preemptive so that Treach's soul is on their side and not the crippled gods. Same with Fenner, although Fenner is like hiding.
Nate, is it fun hearing all this speculation where you know the answers?
It's really fun, but it's also not fun because I feel like all I could say is those are good thoughts and Raffo.
I guess that's the hard part about being singled out as the one who has read the entire.
And I'm enjoying this. I get to bounce all these fun ideas off. Here's some other crazy ideas because most of the time I'll say my ideas and Nate's like, he's like, I like that. I love your theories. Rafa, we'll see what happens. And I'm like, we don't get to play off of this as much, but
Nate sounds like he does a very good job of letting you down easy.
Oh, he does.
That's okay. We've had many of those in the Malazan conversations we've had, so it's all good.
I think that's the funny thing is that Matt doesn't really want to know. He just wants to ask the question so that he knows that an answer is coming later.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to play the game of like, if he doesn't answer, then I know at least there's something coming down the road, whether it's in book 4 next chapter or book 10 or something. But
then the hard part is you got to remember it all that time later too.
I know, and my terrible note taking has not helped me in that because Nate will reference things I've said before, and I'm like, I said that.
It helps that I hear it twice.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that definitely helps. There was a comment that I had on this episode because I was editing the previous one, chapter 7, after I got home from work. So there's something in there, and I'm like, ooh, that kind of refers to this chapter. I'm gonna go jot that down. Boop, 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 boop. So
there you go.
I'm loving these conversations. This is great. The last thing that I had was when Getho told the crippled god his house had found a new herald. In my mind, I had it that Hood pulled him from the meeting with, you know what? Never mind. I answered that question. We can delete that. Got it.
You actually did delete it. All right.
Yeah. No, Hood, he was in Hood's domain, and then he opened his own warren, and then the fissure came. I remember that when I reread it, but when I was summarizing, because what I do, and it's kind of funny how much like video game strategy comes to my mind. Like anytime I play a video game, I will go through it, and then I will go back and like meticulously get all of the things. And then once I've done that, I can figure out how to get the good stuff really early in the game, and then I'll go back and play it a third time, get all the good shit for the harder stuff. And I kind of do that with summarizing too. Like I'll read it, I understand it, I get the premise, I have the bigger picture of the chapter, and then I'll go through and I'll summarize it, but I'm only summarizing half of it. So I really only get half of the detail. So once I'm done summarizing it, then I'll go back and read it, all of the sections. I'm weird.
All right.
We love you anyways.
I try.
You guys ready to move on?
Well, I mean, I just had the one thought, like at the very end, I think it's interesting that Gethel, like the crippled god, makes such a convincing argument that there's just like that moment of silence, and then he like very reluctantly agrees, like, fine, I'll be your herald, because he's like, he doesn't see a way out of it, I feel like. And so he
Kind of
just
like it's
joins
a
in.
lose-lose situation.
Yeah.
I think that could also go back. I think at some point in chapter 7, after Gethel is yanked back into Hood's Warren, the Talanaima say something like, "Yeah, Gethel is a slippery bitch. We've been chasing him forever, and he'll do anything to avoid us, even serve another god." And so now that he's not Hood's herald, I think maybe serving the crippled god also gives him some of that protection that he wants.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's fair.
Interesting.
I mean, if I was a Jaghut, I would be 1, really angry, and 2, hesitant, and 3, very slippery to try to avoid. You know, I'm scared shitless, right? Like, I'm going to do everything that I can to avoid being annihilated.
Yeah.
But then also Jaghut are very, I mean, peaceful's not the right word, but they're reclusive. It's not really in his nature to be combative. But yeah,
But
that was a great
I
section.
don't have any more thoughts.
All right. Well, I can take this one here. Murillo said, "Y'all gonna make me lose my mind," even as he threw his bones, which bounded, rolled, and eventually stopped. Krupp said it was the Lord's push as he gathered the bones and tossed them himself. He threw a winning toss and garnered the riches into his lap. Quick Ben said he had seen every possible way of cheating, the best and the worst, and yet whatever Krupp was doing had evaded his eyes. Krupp was aghast at the suggestion of cheating and wondered what poor saps would witness the cosmic sympathy on this night of all nights. Murillo asked what the hell cosmic sympathy was, and Call said it was another word for cheating, and told Quickben to get his bet in as he was in a hurry to lose more of his hard-earned cash. Murillo said it was the table. Somehow it skewed everything, but somehow Krupp had cracked its pattern. He told Krupp not even to deny it. Krupp said he denies all things that are deniable, but he could assure that there was no pattern because the principal appointed to that role had vanished, but their leaving was only an illusion. Quickben cut him off and said Darkheart where it matters most and Skull in the corner. Krupp said it was a bold wager. Quickben snorted and said not once, ever, had he seen one of those. He made his toss and everything lined up perfectly. Krupp said now he had seen it, and his pockets now overflow. Call asked what the point of this was. Krupp wins every throw. A good sheet loses every now and again. Krupp said this only proved his innocence. This is madness, and is obviously beyond his control. Quickben asked how he did it. Krupp dried his forehead and said there were warrens abound, licking the air with flame, and asked Quickben for mercy. Quickben looked to where Whiskey Jack sat, apart from the others. He said there was something there, he swore, but he was slippery and he couldn't quite pin it down. Whiskey Jack told him to give it up. He wouldn't catch him. Quickben turned to Krupp and said he was not what he seems. Call interrupted him and said he is exactly what he seems. A giant, slimy, greasy eel. Look at his sweaty brow. Look at him squirm. That's Krupp, every bit of him. Krupp said he was taken aback by the scrutiny and he crumbled before the unwanted attention. They watched him wring out his rag and were surprised at the oily water that was squeezed out of it. Krupp said he was thirsty and asked if there was wine left in the jug. Also, why had Corlat arrived at the entrance to the tent in the middle of the night? Corlat entered the tent and told Whiskey Jack that her master requested his presence. Whiskey Jack said he accepted the invitation. Quickben told Krupp he would figure him out. Krupp said he was simple and there was no trickery about him. Simplicity is Krupp's mistress to his wife of truth. A happy threesome. Krupp was still blabbering as Whiskey Jack left the tent with Corlat and said he was surprised her lord was still around. He hadn't been seen for days. She said he would remain in their company for some time, though he didn't have the patience for meetings. Crone generally kept him informed. Whiskey Jack asked what need there was for him. She told him that was for Animander to reveal. The Night of the Dark's tent was no different from any other, no guard, and only a single lantern. Outside the flat, Corlat said her escort was done and that he may enter. Rake was sitting with 2 goblets of wine and told Whiskey Jack to make himself comfortable. Rake filled a cup and gave it to him, saying, "With the right perspective, even a mortal life can seem a long one, fulfilling. And what he finds himself thinking about now is pure happenstance. Men and women walking parallel paths, lives brushing close and changed by their brief contact." Whiskey Jack said he didn't find change particularly threatening. Rake said he usually would agree with that statement, but there is tension among the command. He was sure Whiskey Jack was already aware of it. Whiskey Jack only nodded. Rake said there were long-standing ambitions that were now straining, old rivalries and new ones. The situation has an effect of separating each and every one of them from one another. Though if they abide, and the dude always abides, the calm return of instinct returns whispering of hope. Rake's eyes quickly made contact with Whiskey Jack. Whiskey Jack asked if this was all about hope. Rake told him he listens to his instincts. When 2 lives brush close, no matter how briefly, it lets him know who is trustworthy. Take Gano's Paran, for example. They met originally not far from here, being used as Open's tool and moments from death in a Hound of Shadow's jaw. He knew he was as good as dead, and if he lived or died, made no difference to Rake. And yet, Whiskey Jack finished his sentence saying he liked him. Rake said that was accurate. They sat in silence for a few minutes before Whiskey Jack said he imagined Quick Ben had him curious. Rake said he was. Whiskey Jack said he first met him in 7 cities, in the holy desert Raraku. It was a long story. Rake smiled and said it would be worth it. Whiskey Jack continued saying Adafon Dalat was a middling wizard working for the 7 cities protectors during a rebellion that began in Erin. Quick Ben and 11 other cadre mages made up the unit. His unit's own mages were more than a match for them. He names off Bellardin, Nightchill, Taishren, Acherones, Tessor Maldonis, and Stumpy. They were a formidable group who were doing the good Lord Emperor's work. The city Quick Ben and his crew were taking refuge in was breached. There was a slaughter in the streets. Everyone was taken by bloodlust. The Seam took out the Holy Protector, as his unit, called the First Sword, worked their way through the enemy ranks. The Holy Protectors, seeing their master killed, fled into the desert. They were ordered to track them down, and their guide was a local who was only recently recruited into the Claw.
Now you know why I was so excited to talk with you about Chapter 8.
I guess I wasn't sure which part of it you were excited for.
So this and then leading into the next section as well.
Okay. I kind of thought maybe it was just all of it.
All of it's good, but specifically...
I mean, this is the best part right here.
This was your favorite map? This part?
Well, I mean, the next section as well, but the whole Whiskey Jack raid and stuff. Because, I mean...
It was pretty cool.
It's Whiskey Jack and Animander Rake talking about Quick Ben. Like, what's a better combination? I mean, come on. This was awesome.
Yeah, I guess I'll just kind of start here. Justin was thinking that, this table that's skewed in Krupp's favor is the one with Paran's face painted underneath it. I guess they were bringing that with on the march towards Capistan, correct? Or at least part of the way. So I think I agree with Justin's thoughts on that.
Yeah, they were bringing the table with them on the march so Quick Ben could study it more. And I would not put it past Quick Ben to play dice on a table that he knew was enchanted for some reason. Because Quick Ben is super arrogant. And so I would not put it past them that they're playing on that same table.
I guess I don't know that I've gotten the sense yet that he's arrogant, or I haven't picked up on it.
The next section, you don't get the sense of that?
I mean, you see him like in book 1, you barely know anything about him, and he's messing with the Warden of Chaos and then Shadow Throne. Like, he's playing games with gods for fun, it seems like.
That's, yeah, true.
And in the next section, he also thinks about like how conniving and deceitful and slippery the crippled god is, and he grins and says, "A worthy opponent."
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I guess I just didn't think of it as arrogance then. I don't know.
Well, and
arrogance might not be the right word. He's very self-confident. We can say that.
Yeah. Sure.
I don't know how much y'all talked about the table, but I know that in some of the previous chapters, particularly chapter 5, when the bridge burners are kind of talking about the table and what they've discovered, a lot of them were like, "Oh, well, it's Quick Ben and Fiddler's table. Like they pretty much run this table." So to your point, Quick Ben knows that it's enchanted and knows that he probably should have his way with it, right?
It was Fiddler and Hedge that used to run
Oh,
the
never
card
mind
games.
then.
Quickman definitely has been around those games a lot.
Gotcha.
I did agree with your assessment that must be the table with Brand's face on it. But Krupp talking about the principal appointed to this role, I guess I didn't know who he was talking about. Just I don't know if you had thoughts or Matt. I was I wasn't sure. Yeah, who that was about.
Which one?
Where Krupp says he denies, everything that he can deny. There's no pattern to things yet because the principal appointed to that role has vanished, but it's only an illusion. So I don't know who the hell he was talking about.
I think what he's referring to cheating. The principle of cheating appointed points to it may appear as if he's cheating, but no longer because that's purely an illusion because he's not. Krupp is so hard to summarize sometimes just because of the way that he
Yes.
the third person mixed with this almost vocabulary intricacy. So he's actually talking about here. I'm assuming that he's going back to again, kind of elaborating in a very nonsensical type way that he's not cheating.
Gotcha.
I think I actually know what he's talking about, because if we're taking that this table is the one with Perron's face on it, and he's using that, he says, no pattern has formed by way of sincerest assurance, for the principal in question has fled from his appointed role, and Perron is trying to deny his role as the master of the deck. Said flight, not but an illusion, of course, though the enforced delay in self-recognition may well have direst consequences.
That makes sense, yeah.
So you think Krupp is trying to think that he's the master of the deck?
No, I think he's talking about Perron here. He's referring to Perron as the reason that he's trying to deny that he can't form a pattern on this table because Perron's image underneath it doesn't have any power yet, because Perron is trying to deny his role as master of the deck.
Gotcha.
That makes sense.
That makes a lot more sense than my cheating thing. I like that.
And I could very well be wrong because I don't know for sure, but
Great. Means there's no answer.
I mean, in the the few times that you've read this particular sentence, have you swayed your thoughts on this, or is this something that you just kind of slowly build upon?
I don't think I've ever paid attention to that sentence before, and I've never put together that it might be the table with Perron's face on it. So that just popped into my head right now.
Gotcha.
I went back and just read that sentence to see if I could see anything with it.
Yeah, Krupp just has this way of eluding you as a reader. And it's kind of fascinating from a reader's perspective because you get it, but in a very vague sense of what he's trying to talk about or describe, and how many hidden meanings are there really? Yeah, he blows my mind as a character, and I absolutely love him as a character, but he's frustrating.
Yeah, definitely. And then lots of times it's is he actually being genuine? Is he faking you out? Is he making you think that he's faking you out while he's actually being genuine? Is he triple faking you out? Because here I genuinely have no idea if Krupp is cheating or if he literally believes that the universe is making him win.
Or he's just blaming it on the universe making him win.
Yep.
Right.
I feel like the universe would favor Krupp, though. It'd just be I feel like the universe just roots for him and just he is our champion of messing with people and just making them confused.
So do you think it's Crone who just finds him very entertaining? It's just a cruel trick that the universe is I like this guy. He's fucking dumb, but he's funny. Did I, Nate, you've listened to the part where my theory on Krupp, right?
Which theory was it? I've just barely I'm 20 minutes into your chapter 5 episodes. So anything beyond that, I haven't.
Of Gardens?
Oh, of Memories of Ice.
Oh, yeah, it was something.
Was this in Gardens?
Yeah, I brought up in either Gardens or Deadhouse Gates towards the end. But I think, and Matt, you may not know, but I think that in order for Krupp to go into his dream stasis, is that he has to get so lethargically full that he passes out in order to do that, which is why he eats so much, why he's always stuffing his face.
The food is his source of magic.
I do remember this now. Yes.
Yeah. No, the food is a way for him to like invoke comatose.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I haven't thought too much into Krupp except I'm always hesitant every time I think about him. Like I don't want to think about him too hard because I don't know if he's like that big a deal or if he's like just kind of the fun side guy just to mess with people. But like he's been in kind of key dreams and weird things, so I'm always like, he's such a weird enigma to me.
Right. Like being in a threesome with Truth and Faith.
Yep.
And then his other mistress dreams and whatever the hell else it
Yeah.
was.
They kind of sound like stripper names, don't they?
The Universal it would be like the Universe's strip club that he goes to. That's why he enters the dream state.
Right. Yes. On a full tummy. Yeah. What did you all think of Rake and Whiskey Jack's conversation?
I love it so much. It's two dudes being bros and respecting each
Exactly.
other.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like that was my thought as I was just like, I feel like at the beginning they're just like, I like this guy. I can't quite put my finger on it. Like, how do we what should we talk about? You know, like how do we start this? Like they're just both kind of like feeling like like how they should kind of continue. You know, like is this like a true political like as commander and your commander? Like what do we talk about? Or is this like a kind of just like get to know each other meeting or something?
Yeah, it's like a feeling out process, right? Like they're just kind of like it's like they're the only two guys at a bar or something.
Yeah,
For sure. I guess it was nice to see the camaraderie, kind of going off of what you guys are all saying. I mean, these guys have met previously before, but not really in a spot where they can just sit down and bro out. So
Yeah, there's always been so much going on. They haven't really had a chance to just like hang out.
And I think kind of what brings this on is Whiskey Jack when he stood up for Silver Fox and, bitch slapped Calor, stood in front of Silver Fox and wasn't going to let Calor do anything. I think that really opened up Rake's eyes to like respecting Whiskey Jack because you get the feeling this super old ascendant dude doesn't usually not lower himself, but he doesn't usually like talk with humans because they just go by in the blink of an eye for him.
I mean,
Yeah, and he makes mention of that too. Again, it might have been in the next section. He kind of gets a little snippy with Crone when Crone mentions that. So that I wonder if we'll learn more about that later.
Well, I'm wondering if it's stemming from, I recall a conversation with Baruch and Rake in the Gardens of the Moon, where Rake is like really trying to explain the Tissiande and how they don't really even have like really a will to live anymore. Like they don't even bury their dead because they're just so indifferent to everything. And I'm wondering if like Rake behind the scenes is having this like realization that, hey, maybe I should slow this down and like stop and smell the roses and change my mindset. And yes, mortals' lives do fly by in a blink of an eye because I'm fucking 20,000 years old and counting. And maybe this is just his attempt at turning a new leaf.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think as well, it's like if I'm remembering correctly, like Rake, when he first showed up, like he saw Silver Fox and was kind of like, what do we have here? And like kind of was like in more of an aggressive position. And Whiskey Jack just kind of stands up and is like, I will stand here and stop you if I can. So I think just that as well of him just being like Whiskey Jack, like is like not terribly frightened by much. I feel like even if he is, he puts on the show of like this is who I am. I'm just gonna stand up for what I feel is right and just put myself in the way to protect others. So I think Rake kind of like respects that. He's like, this isn't just an average soldier commander who's just out there kind of like bloodthirsty fighting. Like this is a guy who's really there for the betterment of whatever cause he's a part of. And I think Rake, like you mentioned that like he's kind of indifferent to so many things. So seeing that probably like awakens something in him of like, oh yeah, I missed that. I remember that. So, but
Nicely said. My moving on. I think my last thought here, I typed wrong unless somehow I was just right on this. But Stumpy, I don't think we've met before, and then also Tessor Mallandis. I don't think we've had that name before, have we?
No, I will say while you were reading the summary, I looked both of those names up in the Malazan wiki. Right here is the only mention we have ever gotten in any Malazan books of either of those. characters.
Oh, really? Okay. So there's nothing more to learn there.
No, that's all we know about them is that they were Malazan military mages.
Oh, good.
I wonder what that's like to be able to look up the wiki when you run into an issue.
I've wondered that before.
I did it on my first read too and got spoiled for something in the final book, like 20 pages before I read it.
Oh,
that's
ouch.
frustrating.
But that's the only thing I did get spoiled.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would say that was major was Duiker got spoiled, his death.
Yeah, for me. Or, well, yeah. I don't think he's like completely dead. He's got to be coming back somehow.
I mean, based on those like gremlin type dudes, like, yeah, I think the intent was to get Coltane's soul, but they got Duiker's instead.
Right.
So I really hope that we see some of that in this book. Not necessarily that particular part, but just some of the things that are like happening parallel with Deadhouse Gates and some of the events with like the Tri-Gaelic Trade Guild. It'd be nice to have them discuss that particular scenario.
I don't know that we're going to get it, Justin. I don't think so.
Mm,
Well, I mean, we might get a little the trade guild, but I don't think we're really going to see much of anything that's already going on in Raraku. I mean, why would we? We already saw it.
I think it just more or less to get the other side of the story.
Like the perspective, yeah.
Yeah. Kind of fill in those gaps without really filling in those gaps, which is really something that like Erickson does really well, is that he can play around with the same premise and make you see the bigger picture without showing you the same thing twice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess we'll have to read and find out, Justin.
Right.
I was going to say, I will stay silent.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But yeah, I didn't have anything else for that particular section. So
Yeah,
No,
I think. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, whoever wants to take this next one, I think probably we're in a good spot for that.
I mean, I can read it since I haven't read one yet.
all right.
Let her rip.
All right, we got about 2.5 pages here, so hope no one falls asleep. But
Grab your
no,
pop.
but all right. So starts out. The story of Quickben was then told by Whiskey Jack. Whiskey Jack watched Kalam twist in his saddle, sweat glistening on his brow. Kalam, the guide, stated that they were all together, and he thought that they would have split, thus forcing them to do the same. He tells the commander that the trail leads out into the heart of Raraku. Whiskey Jack asked about how far ahead. Kalam responded and said that it would be about half a day on foot. The commander stared out into the ochre haze of the desert. 70 soldiers rode at his back, a collection of Marines, sappers, engineers, infantry, and cavalry. 3 years of sieges, set battles, and pursuits for the most of them. They were what the Dasim Ultor judge could be spared, even sacrificed if necessary. Cutting Whiskey Jack off from his thoughts, Kalam explained that Raraku is a holy desert, a place of power. The commander cut him off and told him to lead on. The troop rode at a trot with brief intervals of walking over the barren plain. The first corpse was discovered early in the afternoon, a withered figure, head tilted skywards and eye sockets hollowed out. Kalam dismounted and examined the body for a while. He turned to Whiskey Jack and said that it was Keb Arla. Kalam was about to explain that he found something odd when Whiskey Jack cut him off, saying that apart from appearing to have died hundreds of years ago, what did Kalam find odd about the body? A soldier chuckled from somewhere behind the commander. Whiskey Jack commanded the funny man to come forward. A rider joined them. A thin young man joined him, wearing an ornate helmet. Whiskey Jack told him to remove the helmet as the soldier would cook his brains out wearing that, and to lose the broken fiddle while he was at it. The soldier explained how he's able to keep the helmet cool, and the commander and the soldier had a brief conversation about the broken fiddle. Whiskey Jack told Fiddler to return to his position. Before Fiddler did, he told the commander that he didn't have a good feeling about all this. Whiskey Jack said that he wasn't alone in that feeling. Fiddler attempted to explain what was cut short with shouts for the commander. Hedge nudged his mount forward and explained that Fiddler's hunches haven't disappointed yet. He explains how Sergeant Nubber was told not to drink from a jug as there was a lizard in it and he choked to death. Whiskey Jack said enough and turned to Kalam and told him to lead on. Kalam nodded and climbed into his saddle. 11 mages on foot without supplies, fleeing across a lifeless desert. Late in the afternoon, they came across another body, shriveled just like the last one. With the sun near to setting, they found the third one on the trail. Directly ahead were jagged cliffs, tinted red with the sunset. Kalam informed the commander that the trail of remaining wizards led towards them. The horses were getting exhausted and water was starting to become a concern. Whiskey Jack called for a halt and a camp was prepared. After the meal, Whiskey Jack joined Kalam at the fire. Kalam checked on the water inside the pot suspended over the flames. He explained to the commander that the herbs inside this tea will lessen the loss of water come tomorrow. He explained that he was lucky to have it, as it was rare and getting rarer. Kalam explained some of the side effects of the tea when Whiskey Jack interjected that he knew and explained that he'd been on this continent long enough to learn a few things. Kalam explains that he's forgetting that fact as long as they all seem to be so young. Whiskey Jack says that they were just as young as Kalam. Kalam tells him that he's not seen as much in the world, being some bodyguard to a holy Fala in Aran. Whiskey Jack questioned the word bodyguard, said not to mince words, as he was holy Fala's private assassin. Kalam explains that his journey has begun, but for Whiskey Jack and crew, what they've seen and what they've been through will have been all there in the commander's eyes. Whiskey Jack sat studying the man, the silent stretching. Kalam removed the pot and poured the 2 cups of tea and handed one to the commander. Said that they'll catch up with the mages tomorrow. Whiskey Jack agrees and says that they made great time. Must be within a few bells of catching up. They're using warrens, and Kalam was shaking his head and explained that if they were using warrens, then all signs of their trail would have vanished. Whiskey Jack agrees, but then asks why the footprints led on unbroken. Kalam squinted and said he didn't know. Whiskey Jack finished the tea, dropping the cup, and left. Day after day, the pursuit taking them through battered ravines, gorges, and hills. More bodies discovered, desiccated figures that Kalam identified one after another. Renisha, sorcerer of High Mayanus, Kulugar, Septim, priest of Driss, the Worm of Autumn, Narkal, the warrior mage, sworn defender, and aspirant to the god's mortal sword. Olin, the soul-taken priestess of Soliel. And then deprivation took its toll on the hunters. Horses died or butchered than eaten. Had the mage's trail not led Kalam and the others to one hidden spring after another, they would all be dead. Setalad, Cruel, a Jag half-blood who had once driven Dasim Ultor back a dozen steps in a furious counterattack, his sword ablaze with the blessing of an unknown ascendant. Etra, mistress of the Rashan Warren. Birithera, mage of the Cirque Warren. Gelid, witch of the Tens Warren. Raraku had taken them all, but now one remained. His light footsteps, then was left behind. Up a steep, rocky channel through an eroded fissure and out into the natural amphitheater, see it cross-legged on a boulder. The opposite side of the clearing sat the last mage. Kalam turned his horse around and explained that it was Adafon Delat, a mage of the Mayanus Warren. The assassin explains that the lot was never much, so he won't be able to muster much of a defense. Whiskey Jack said nothing, angled his mount past the assassin towards the mage. His voice carrying across the amphitheater, Delat said he had one question. Whiskey Jack responded with what? He asked who in Hood's name was he. Whiskey Jack asked if it mattered. Quick explains that no man was worth chasing across the entirety of the desert of Raraku. Whiskey Jack said that there were 11 others in the wizard's company. Delat shrugged and explained that he was the youngest and healthiest. He says that he could go no further as his body has finally given up. His dark eyes looked past Whiskey Jack and he said, "Your soldiers." Whiskey Jack, what of them? Delat says there are more and less, no longer what they once were. Raraku has burned the bridges of their past. It's all gone. They are yours, heart and soul. They are yours. Whiskey Jack responded by saying that more than the wizard realized. He called back and asked Fiddler and Hedge if they were ready. 2 voices responded saying that they were. Whiskey Jack saw the tension in the wizard's eyes as Fiddler and Hedge flanked Kalam with crossbows trained on the assassin. Whiskey Jack explained that the pair had played an extraordinary game. Fiddler had sniffed out the secret communications and would have ended this a week sooner. However, the commander had grown curious. 11 mages. Once the first revealed their ancient knowledge to you, knowledge she was unable to use, it was a matter of bargaining. What choice did the others possess? Death by Raraku or by my hand? Do their souls cling to you, screaming to escape their prison? He asked the wizards to what end this game was for him and Kalam. The illusion of wariness fled from Delat and he smiled. He explains that the clamor has subsided. Even the ghost of a life is better than Hood's embrace. They've achieved a balance. Whiskey Jack responded that the wizard now hosted powers unimagined. Delat agrees but said he has no desire to use them now. As far as the game they played, it was one of survival. He continues on to explain that thought Whiskey Jack and company wouldn't make it, that Raraku would claim their souls. Because of what Whiskey Jack and his soldiers had become, he said that he and Kalam would join them if the commander would have them. Whiskey Jack said that the Emperor would take the mage from him. The lad said only if you tell the Emperor as far as Kalam and, well, the Claw will be displeased. Smiling, he said that it was too bad for Surly. Whiskey Jack twisted his saddle and studied the faces of the soldiers. Company cold from the Empire's cast-offs, now hardcore. Whiskey Jack said to himself, what had they made here? The first engagement as the bridge burners was the retaking of Dan Isban, what a name, a mage, an assassin, and 70 soldiers who swept into a rebel stronghold of 400 desert warriors and crushed them in a single night. Those are some names in there. Good night.
Yeah. I don't know why I decided to put them in. I just thought that they were cool. But
Oh, they're cool, but yeah.
I wasn't
I was
anticipating anybody but myself to read it, so I apologize.
Oh no, you're good. That was fun. I've never done a summary, so I now know it's like it's a lot more
Nate?
work than I want to do.
I thought maybe you had some help for a second, Nate, but maybe not now.
No, Nate's too kind and does all of it.
You do all of the summaries?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Mine, to be fair, I don't put in nearly as much effort as you guys do, and mine are significantly shorter.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. I don't know. I guess I don't recall, Derek, how we decided to go this in depth with the particular summaries. It just kind of evolved that way.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I mean, it just seems like the only way that made sense, I think, for us. And
Yeah.
now I can't really see doing it much of a different way.
I don't
mean,
know
Especially since,
how I would do it.
A chapter at a time it makes sense, but I mean we'll do 2 or 3 chapters in one go, so we're a little more summarized or really summarized, like quick short stuff. So just 2 different ways to go about it.
Yeah.
I think the problem for us is we probably don't know what we could cut out
It's true.
since we haven't
And
read
that's
it.
fair.
So
I would always be curious, once we're done with this epic quest, to just come back, read the books again in a more straighter fashion, and then just have an episode per book. Or we
Yeah,
just
there's
have, like-
tons of people that have done that. They get 4 or 5 booktubers together and just have a 2-hour episode on the whole book.
Right.
What did you three? This is why I was so excited to do chapter 8 with you guys. What did you three think of the formation of the bridge burners?
Confused. I understand that Raraku had a hand in that, but I'm not exactly sure how it dissolves their past and made them loyal to Whiskey Jack, which I get is kind of the anathema to Surly/Lucine's reign, right? Loyalty to the Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that concept, but the intricate details of how it happened are eluding me.
Like I mean, I feel like this is like one perspective of many. Like there was a lot of this journey that I feel like wasn't explained, because it like he explained like, oh, we could have ended this a week ago and just gone back. Like we won't have to worry about this. So I think it's like there may be more explanation down the road. I don't know. But I think it's just because it was such a long journey through a desert, like tracking and just being together as like knowing you're the outcast, but like kind of going through that, and then your leader just being like, no, we're going to play this out. And then they kind of discover this weird secret plot. And then after that, going and destroying an entire stronghold on their own. I think that's probably what played a part into it, like kind of giving them that morale and that confidence as a team, being able to do that. But
yeah, taking out a city being outnumbered like 4.5 to 1, it's pretty wild.
I do also think that some of the intricate details don't get explained here, because this Whiskey Jack's main point in telling the story to Rake is to explain who and what Quickben is. And so that's what gets a lot of the focus. And it just so happens that Quickben's story is very intricately linked to the bridge burners. And so that gets thrown in there as well.
I'm assuming it's the start of more explanations to come that will slowly build on it. And I think that what we're supposed to take away is just that a change happened. Their paths were burned. Thus, the name, right?
Yeah.
But how exactly it happened, I mean, that's still elusive.
I'm not gonna lie though, it wasn't until I read through this whole thing again that like it really clicked for me. I was like, oh, this is the bridge burner bit. I was like I read it before and I was like, okay, that was cool. Yeah, the bridge burners. And then it was like this, like clicked with me. I was like, oh no, this was like the start of them. Like this is where it kind of came from.
And I feel like this is the beauty of summarizing, and not a knock by any means, but I get more when I summarize. That is the most influential part of this podcast, as daunting and as time consuming as some of these sections can be, and the length and the amount of sections one has. But it is really the most richful.
Yeah.
But anyway, the first thing that I thought was cool is just this Kevharla was said to be more scholar than a mage, a delver into mysteries. And I feel like this kind of ties into Quick Ben's character a little bit, as in he is such a mysterious character. And it's not necessarily her power, it's her knowledge. And I'm assuming that based on this section, that is part of Quick Ben. He's got this knowledge that really doesn't do him any good outside of maybe a couple of scenarios every once in a while.
Yeah, I definitely like this section. As soon as I saw like going back a little bit, the multiple when he's like a group of 12 wizards ran away into the desert. I was like, so those are the other wizards that Quick Ben holds. So I think, yeah, it's definitely like him absorbing all this and over time, like all these souls into him. It's kind of formed into the one, kind of and I think some of that explanation and more of how it works is kind of being like observing Silver Fox so much is like how she's started, like we're seeing the start of it and like how it's kind of blending together. And Quick Ben's like the full effect of the blend of like all these souls into one, or like the effects of that many into one. So I definitely agree. I think it's really cool to see like that at least one of the details of like all these I'm sure have contributed to different things we'll see of Quick Ben or that we've seen in the past.
Right. Yeah, like the Fenner mage that he absorbed. That totally explains why he knows so much about the Fenner cult or Fenner religion
Yeah.
In the previous chapter. The other thing that I thought was cool was Fiddler and this whole shaved filings that when thrown into a fire still remain cool. I wonder what exactly that's about and if it'll make an appearance again. Because I almost get like an Otatero vibe, but not quite, with the whole sand that you can throw in a helmet and it stays cool no matter what. I just thought it was like a weird intricacy, but it could very well be something like the bone phone where we don't ever see again.
I mean, I thought it was just more of a like a note to introduce Fiddler, of like kind of this quirky fella. That was my thought.
Yeah.
But
I love the detail of Whiskey Jack realizing, wait a second, the Holy Falad was wearing that. And Fiddler's like, yeah, Dasimultor decapitated the dude and his head flew right into my hands.
Yeah,
So I kept it.
he just took the head out and whoop. I guess I was under the assumption that the sand could have already have been in there. I guess I didn't really look at it from that perspective, but I thought it was just something that like he found or he ran across or
yeah.
One of the other things that I thought was cool is like we get an origin story for the broken fiddle.
Yep.
And just that hedge, that motherfucker breaking it while trying to play it. There's a nice little like added humor there. So I liked that part.
Oh yeah.
Can I say something completely unrelated?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am an idiot. We've been talking for almost 2 hours, and I just plugged in my microphone.
Oh well. One of the other things that I thought was interesting, and I'm sure I'm 100% wrong, but when Hedge is talking about Sergeant Nubber being killed by the dead lizard in his drink, I wasn't sure if this was like supposed to be some type of sarcasm or if these soldiers like really believe in Fiddler's hunches. So I don't know what you all thought.
I think they do, just because like we see with the table and the whole deck, like they feel like they notice that Fiddler has like a sensitivity to it all, and so like I think Fiddler knows some things because I mean at the end of Deadhouse, like we see here kind of like this ragtag team of like the Expendables of just like yeah these guys die, it's whatever, and you see kind of like a less like military maturity in some of these guys, but by the end of Deadhouse, you see Fiddler like, no, I'm going to go join the fight against the rebellion, and like you just see kind of like this new sense of intelligence. And so I think he genuinely does have something like a gift in a sense about like his feelings. And so I think these guys are like, I mean, soldiers are superstitious, I feel like, so I think these guys do have a genuine belief in this.
I will say Fiddler does have some sort of sensitivity. This is going way back, but in Gardens of the Moon, like chapter 6 or 7, right before the Hound of Shadow attacks, Fiddler stands up and is pacing and like I have a bad feeling about this. He's the
yeah.
Han Solo of Malazan. So there's been multiple little. It's been little times, but there's been multiple times throughout the books where he's felt like something was going to happen, and then something happens.
I don't remember that, but that's
Me
interesting.
neither.
I remember that part, but I don't remember like the pacing.
Yeah.
See, this is why I'm excited to read the series again. Whenever this
It's
journey
insane! It's insane
but-
how different the second time is.
There's been so many times where Nate's like, "Did you catch this?" And I'm like, part of me was just thinking, I'll catch this the next time I read it through.
Yeah, cool. When Kalam and when Kalam and Whiskey Jack are talking about the Warrens and the mages potentially using them, Whiskey Jack kind of like questions this, like, oh, well, if they are, then why do the footprints lead on unbroken? And I feel like at this point is where Whiskey Jack is on to Kalam in some way, shape, or form. And this is kind of what I really enjoy about Whiskey Jack's parts is he's just so perceptive in nature. And he just kind of like picks up on things that don't seem right because he's logical, he's sensical, and something isn't adding up here. So he knows that something is up. And potentially combining that with like Fiddler's hunches, able to figure out what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Quickman and Kalam, rather. Another thing that I thought was interesting to me is that we're talking about like horses dying and they were butchered and eaten. If the mage's trail had not led Kalam and the others to like one hidden spring to another, they would all be dead. Now, I'm thinking, is that coincidence? Is that just the fact that these mages need water as well? Or is that planned to keep the pursuers alive?
I mean, they're just because they're mages doesn't mean they don't need water, right? I mean, I think they need it just as much. That's how I'm feeling about it. Not to like trying to shit on your parade, Justin, but like
no, it's fine.
They're just people. They just use magic. That's all. Like, don't we kind of know like just about anybody can learn to use magic here in this world, right?
Yep.
I'm just saying that's
like, my
thoughts. If I was being tracked, I would not lead my pursuers to water.
That's true. Yeah.
Well, so you're just gonna die of thirst instead?
No, I would find a way to like lead them on a false trail.
How are you? It's like walking through the snow, though. I mean, you're either gonna waste so much time, you're just gonna die of thirst.
But I mean,
or how are you gonna do it? I mean, maybe there's a way to do it. I don't know.
I'm not gonna try, but that's what I would do if I were to.
You don't want to go get lost in the desert with me,
No,
Justin?
I'm good. I'm fine. I don't want to like get people to pursue me that want to kill me or like apprehend me. Like I'm not that kind of guy.
Hey, come out here. We'll take you across the salt flats.
I was
just gonna say, don't you guys have a desert out there? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as it's guided and safe and not having people pursue it, I'm all down.
I actually have never been out there, but that's where multiple like land vehicle speed records have been broken because it's just miles and miles of nothing, and so you can get up to 280 miles an hour or whatever the record is.
I went out there once. It's pretty cool. The salt flats.
Wasn't the Nutty Putty Cave in Utah?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't even know what the hell that is, Justin.
It's so sad. If you're really curious, like there's videos about it on the tube of views. It's a tragic story. So unless you want your heart broken, I'd say go for it.
I mean, I am reading Malazan.
Yeah, but this is like real life, dude.
It's a little different than the Chain of Dogs.
Basically, some cavers got stuck in there and died.
Spelunkers.
Oh. Yeah. Is this not the guy who had his arm pinned under a rock for 100 and some odd hours?
No, that's someone else. That happened in Zion National Park.
Yeah, that's a different story.
He got like stuck upside down in a cave that was like what, 13 inches wide or something like that.
He tried to crawl through the hole and got like stuck at the waist, and they couldn't cut him out.
Right. So he ended up just dying upside down because his body. Take that in. He had a wife.
I think they had a newborn as well at the time or something.
Yeah.
He got no business going crawling through caves and tiny openings.
But here's the thing. He was an experienced spelunker.
Yeah. Like this was a famous cave is from my understanding, like to go like explore. So
yeah, he thought he was in the part of the thing called like the birth canal or something like that.
I mean, I guess if it's 13 inches, that just seems like a aptly named place for an adult.
Yeah, but he wasn't really in the birth canal. He was like in some uncharted part of it that he thought was the birth canal. So, yeah.
No, they're gonna be a hard no for me. I'm not. If I can't walk in it, I'm not. I'm not going.
I'm incredibly claustrophobic, so no thanks.
I've been in a couple caves out here, and yeah, I'm good. I'd rather not.
That's
Something that's yeah. If I gotta crawl, then yeah, I don't think so.
I mean,
But-
Timpanogos Cave is pretty cool. That one you can walk around, but
that I'd be fine with. But like if I have to get
Yeah.
on my like hands and knees and like crawl, I'm
No
I'm
thanks.
good. I'm out.
I'm out of there.
We've got one not far from us, Justin. You ever been to the Mystery Cave down in Rochester,
No, I
or
have
just outside Rochester?
mm-mm.
Andy was a tour guide there. One of our friend we graduated high school with, and I did a tour with him and a bunch of other people. And you go to this part of the cave, and he had us all turn our flashlights off, and he's like, "Can anybody see anything?" He's like, "Raise your hand if you can see anything, or say something." He's like, "You guys are all a bunch of liars because it's completely pitched. You can't see anything." But I mean, you could walk. You're not crawling around on your hands and knees. It was just dark when you shut the lights off. That was all.
Well, on
It
to
was a nice tangent.
maybe less
Yeah.
sad things.
Yeah, less sad things. A mage transferring the souls of 11 other dead people into his body so that.
He can live.
In a desert, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
One thing that I thought was cool, and I know that I don't really think this way anymore, but when I was first reading, I thought that, Dalat was said to be a mage of the Minas Warren. Kalam kind of explains that Dalat was never much, so he won't be able to muster much of a defense, like when they finally come across him. I'm kind of thinking, okay, Minas, the Warren of Illusion, right? And I'm like, is it possible that Quick Ben illusioned them to see all the dead bodies? I don't think that anymore, but I just wanted to point out like that was kind of like my train of thought when I was first going through it. But it also reminds me of how Culp in Deadhouse Gates describes himself to be. Kind of like this lackluster mage, not very strong. So I kind of see some similarities there, and I thought it was cool to mention. Thought I would mention it, I guess.
I mean, that's
I was just going to say, I also think that Kalam is lying here. I mean, clearly he's lying when he says Dalat was never much, but also we learned in Gardens of the Moon that Quick Ben was a high priest of Shadow at one point.
Right.
And so clearly he was more than just not much.
But wouldn't that have come later though, because they hadn't ascended yet?
So the cult of Shadow existed before Shadow Throne and Cotillion ascended.
Oh, and then
It just had no one on the throne.
So maybe he probably left after they ascended, I imagine, because he's like, nope, I'm not dealing with you guys.
But doesn't the god of Shadow Throne recognize him in Gardens of the Moon?
Yes, he does recognize him. But also Kellenved, the emperor who is now Shadow Throne, would also recognize Quick Ben.
Oh, that's fair. The other comment that I had, and I think that we maybe talked about, we already talked about the bridge burner thing. So I will move on. So 11 mages once the first, I already talked about that. Oh, no, I didn't. 11 mages once that first revealed her ancient knowledge to you, when they're talking about the souls inside of Quick Ben. And this is why Carnatus thought he was mistaken and thought that more mages could have helped conjure the orb in the previous chapter. So I think it's cool because it kind of plays on both of his theories, right? So Carnatus is like, oh, well, it could totally be one dude, which is true, but it could also be other mages helped him conjure it, which could be true because there are 11 souls inside of him. I just thought that was kind of cool. That was amazing.
This has kind of become my role on the podcast, is making tiny connections. But I also think this connects to because in Gardens of the Moon, when Quick Ben is preparing to shift Hairlock's soul into the puppet, Tattersail is like, what the hell? No one's seen that in 1,000 years. And yet here you have Quick Ben shifting souls into himself. So it makes sense that he would be able to shift a soul into the puppet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seeing this though, like reading this, my whole thought the entire time, I was like, what was Quick Ben's pitch of like, hey guys, you want to survive? I got an idea. Like one by one, like was it like it all at once? He kind of got all the souls and just like slowly left the bodies, or was it like they go a while and then he takes a soul, they go a while, then he takes a soul? Like that was kind of my thinking, because it's like what are these mages thinking? Like, because if they're not using the Warrens, then I feel like it must just be Quick Ben going by himself, like going from spot to spot, leading them through, because he and Kalam are obviously working together. So I was just thinking like maybe he's like trying to keep Kalam alive, going from thing to thing, and then like just dropping bodies along the way to like leave it as the code to be like just double checking him. But I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that.
I feel like if it were me, if I were Quick Ben, I'm gonna guess like these people probably weren't willing participants in this. So if I were Quick Ben, I would take out the weakest one first. That makes me a little bit stronger, and just kind of work your way up. Now, I don't know, do you do this while these guys are sleeping or something? How do you keep them from ganging up on you? I guess you got to make it look like an accident, or they died naturally, they got dehydrated or whatever. I don't know, but that's what I would do.
I almost kind of feel like Kalam and Quick Ben have this overall scheme, and it involves Whiskey Jack and company. Like they see something in them, because it seems like Kalam and Quick Ben are essentially on the side of the rebellion back then, right? And they're willing to just switch sides in an instant. So I feel like there's a higher thinking, a prerogative, so to speak, an ulterior motive to these two guys. And this is potentially a way of testing Whiskey Jack and the Bridge Burners to see if they're worthy of that purpose.
Yeah.
And I think it all has to do with Lucine in some way, shape, or form. Nate's
Maybe.
quiet, so I'll take that as a good thing.
I was going to say the same thing. He's been silent.
Well, I don't know what I could say and what I can't say here.
Which I mean, I think that plays into like when he's kind of explaining, his why Whiskey Jack is asking what game, and he was just like, it's one of survival, and that's kind of what is making me think these things. It's almost as if like they know that Lucine has plans to do what she's going to do. Sorry, someone was going to talk. I didn't mean to cut them off.
I think I was gonna. Oh, I was just gonna say that clearly they are worthy because they slaughter 400 soldiers on their own, like take them out in a single night. That I could use a whole novella or a short story just on that.
It would be kind of cool to see that. Also, I don't know if I'm sure Nate you recall, but more so for Matt and Derek. But G Danispan, that's where Fiddler, Absalar, Crocus saved that like little girl from those soldiers in Deadhouse Gates when they were having the conversation around the ascension of Kellenved and Dancer.
She like ran under the wagon or whatever, right?
Yep. And
Yeah.
they all slaughtered them.
Yep, as they should have.
Right. But yeah, I mean, those are all the thoughts that I had picked out in probably what I would imagine is the best section in this book, or in this chapter, excuse me. I think the last section is probably a close second, though. So with that, I'm cool to move on if y'all are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good to move on.
You want to take this one again, Nate?
Sure. The light had burned low in the tent, but dawn was rising. At the end of the Whiskey Jack's story, Rake replied, soul shifting. Rake had heard of shifting one soul into a vessel to prepare for it, but to shift 11 souls, 11 mages into an already occupied 12th? He shook his head in disbelief. He now understood why Quick Ben had asked him to stop probing him, yet here Whiskey Jack is giving away his secret when Rake didn't ask. Whiskey Jack interrupted, saying that to ask would have been presumptuous. Rake said that he understands him then. Whiskey Jack replied that he trusts his instincts as well. Rake rose up from his chair, as did Whiskey Jack. He said he was impressed that he was ready to defend Silver Fox. Whiskey Jack said he was equally impressed when Rake had reined himself in. Rake continued on, talking about the mystery of the cherub. Whiskey Jack didn't understand, and Rake said he was thinking of his first meeting with Krupp. Whiskey Jack said he had no information on Krupp, and they would likely lose the fight in finding anything out about him. Rake agreed. Whiskey Jack said Quick Ben would leave in the morning. Rake said he would keep his distance to not startle him. He held out his arm and they shook hands. Rake said it was a welcome evening. Whiskey Jack said he appreciated his patience. Rake said another night it would be his turn to spin tales as he had a few of his own. Whiskey Jack had no doubts about that. And as Whiskey Jack rose to leave, Rake spoke one last time, saying that Silver Fox has nothing to fear from him, and he will instruct Calor accordingly. Whiskey Jack thanked him and thought he had made a friend this night, and he couldn't remember the last time that happened.
Nice little short section. I feel like it's merely transitional, but
Yeah.
there's definitely some things in here. Derek, I know you had one.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple, but only one that I jotted down. But I wonder, these Quick Ben's got these mages within him, so I wonder, like, is he almost like, does he hear voices or something? Like, are they all in there fighting for their piece of time to be heard? Something like that. I don't know.
Like Split?
Or is that a movie? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, never mind that.
I just kind of wonder, is he like schizophrenic in a sense or something like that? I mean, clearly he seems pretty with it, but I mean, I don't. Maybe he's repressing it or holding it back somehow. Or does he just simply have their magic and that's it, and the rest of them's gone? I don't know.
I think it's just kind of a melting pot of personalities, or maybe not personalities, but just knowledge that these mages possessed, and potentially their warrens as well.
I mean, we do know that he has access to their warrens because he uses 7 on the crippled god and thinks that he could have used more.
Yeah, I wonder, like, how much of that person's, I guess, maybe like soul, for lack of a better term, is within Quick Ben.
I think it's just one of those things where, like, he himself is partitioned into 12 different entities or souls, but like there's one that is essentially dictating the others, and he's just pulling from where he needs it to go.
Could be. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's maybe something we probably won't get an answer to, but maybe we will.
I don't know. Nate's quiet again.
Yeah, Raffo.
Okay, so there's something there. All right.
I love it. One thing that I thought was really unusual is like Rake's random thought about Krupp, and especially the mask that he was wearing at the fete. So I guess, is there any discernment from any of you surrounding what seems to be kind of like a random thought when that's not even where the conversation was about?
Well, I feel like if an ancient knight, son of darkness, with a Warren Force sword and who can change into a dragon seems to have been part of a lot of world-changing events is confused by Krupp, then maybe there's something to that. That's my thought. Because if he's not picking up on some things, then I feel like maybe he's just like, is this guy just kind of just, an oddball, or is there like something really there? So I think that's probably what Rake is thinking, or he knows something that, or has picked up on something that no one else really has, and he's just trying to see if anyone else knows before he starts like making assumptions. But I don't know.
That is really thought provoking. I don't know. That's weird. That is cool.
That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know. Like you said, Krupp's just an enigma. I don't really know what to make of him most of the time. Other than sometimes I don't know if I enjoy his antics or if I'm annoyed by him, but I think sometimes it could go either way.
I unapologetically love Krupp every single time he comes out. Makes me laugh more than anyone else in this book.
I don't like dislike reading his parts or anything like that, but it's just kind of like I get a little tired of reading your riddles, like just be more straightforward.
I will say I've enjoyed Krupp more and more each time I read the series. So
I remember like the first time we saw Krupp in Gardens of the Moon, I was like, Nate's like, so what'd you think of him? And I was like, the weirdo? Like, I don't know. I thought he was just kind of like odd. And Nate's like, he's one of my favorites. I'm like, I will keep an eye on him then. And since then I've like noticed a little more and more, like, not that I've understood him by any means, but like just his character, like how he plays into some of these situations. I'm like, okay, I see why you like him. This is pretty entertaining.
And wasn't the first introduction to Krupp like his first dreamscape?
Yeah, walking down the road in his dream to the inn where he sees the other versions of himself, and then he walks outside and he's hung humility from a tree.
Yep. So yeah, it was very an abstract introduction to Sarah Krupp.
Yeah, and I definitely like kind of going on Krupp a little more of a side note, but I remember me and Nate talked about it a little bit, but just like looking back on the war council, I guess, and where everyone's meeting and Krupp's there, like trying to bargain for Darujhistan. I just think it was so entertaining to have him there. Like this big serious meeting. You got the true leaders and like negotiators for Darujhistan. They're just like trying to make their pitch, and here's Krupp spilling like the most straight out like thought and idea of like, well, this is how you can do it. This makes the most sense. And they all just kind of sit there like, yeah, no, you're right. That's a really smart idea. So
Yeah.
And then he says something like, Krupp will wait while you come to the inevitable conclusion.
Right. Yeah. He's definitely got his moments, his antics. Yeah. I don't know if y'all have anything else for that very quick section, but I'm ready if you
Not
guys
really.
I have one last thought. Rick says he doesn't, or Silver Fox doesn't have anything to worry about from him, and he'll tell basically Calor's going to stay in line. And I don't think it's going to work. I think Calor's going to be a bastard and kill Silver Fox. Still think that.
And I think that's our pie, right? Is that Silver Fox?
It is.
Okay.
It is, and I don't know if I ask, like, if I want to amend it, if I'm more certain that Silver Fox is going to die, or if I just stick to it and that Calor is going to be the one to do it.
I mean, the less specific you get, the better your chances.
I know that. Yeah, I feel pretty confident she's going to die.
All right. Well, I might be taking a pie again, but who knows?
I
my
know
last
who's
thought,
taking
though.
the pie.
You do?
Well, I bet you do.
I know who's taking the pie.
I bet it's one of us that you're talking to.
And it's clearly
it's
not
one of two people.
50% shot. I'm gonna take a pie.
Those are the best odds I'm going to have. I can take that.
I'm gonna be so pissed. I will be fucking pissed. All right. Anyway, section.
I'm good to go on here.
Did any of you all want to read? I'm cool with reading it. Cool. Standing at the entrance, Rake watched the commander limp away. Crone approached from behind and asked her master if that was wise. He asked her what she meant. She explained that there was a price for making nice among short-lived mortals, as Rake could attest to his own tragic memories. Rake called her a hag and told her to watch her words. Crone asked if he denied the truth in her words. Rake responded and said that one could appreciate the value in brevity. Crone cocked her head and said that she doubts that he will elaborate and leave her wondering. She calls him a pig. Rake tells her that he can smell a carrion on the wind and tells her to go find it. He commands it, actually, and once her belly is full, he asks her to send Calor to him. With a snarl, the great raven stepped outside and left. Rake calls for Corlott. She appears and asks what he needs of her. Rake informs Corlott that he'll be leaving for a short time, as he feels the need for Solana's comfort. Corlott said that the dragon would welcome his return. Rake said that he'd be gone for a short time and to extend her protection to Silver Fox. Corlott said that she was pleased by this. Rake also said to have unseen eyes on Calor as well, and if he's to fuck up, to call upon him instantly. But do not hesitate to call down the full force of the Tistiandi. She questions the full force and wonders if it would actually call for that, as the full force hasn't been called down in a long time. Rake admits that he's not sure, but why risk it? Corlott said that she would prepare for the joining of Warrens. Rake sees that this troubles her. Corlott admits that it does, as there are 1,100 Tistiandi. At the chaining, there were a mere 40 of them, yet they were able to destroy the crippled god's realm. Nonetheless, they risked destroying this one too. Rake's eyes veiled and said that she could approach the situation with restraint, and he anticipates that Calor won't fuck around and find out, but nonetheless, just a precaution. She said that she understood, and Rake told her that that was all. Again, another little shorty, and I only have a few things here, but when Crone cocks her head and said that she doubts that he will elaborate and leave her wondering, she's not the only one wondering about this. Is it because he finally gets his answer on Quick Ben? Or so like he knows how to approach it? Like whether that's good or bad intentions? Like what is it that Rake took away from his conversation with Whiskey Jack that he is not going to reveal to Crone?
I don't have an answer for you.
Yeah, I don't have an answer on that. But the line above it where Rake says that you can find great value in brevity, for some reason being that I, until about 2020, was a huge Marvel Cinematic Universe fan, and finding value in brevity brought to mind the line from Vision at the end of Age of Ultron, where he says something like, something isn't beautiful because it lasts. Like something can be beautiful and stay around for a very short time.
I don't remember that line, but
So do you think
that's a good line.
You think it's kind of playing on what I mentioned earlier about Rake maybe having a turning point with his attitude, so to speak?
Yeah, I think just deciding to live in the moment and appreciate what is there while it's there.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because I mean, however long he's been alive and just like the state of his kind, and now seeing like, they chain the cripple god, and now they're starting to see, like, I don't know if they've noticed specifically yet, but like they're starting to catch wind of like a big calamity coming, and the guy that, took 40 of them and a bunch of others to pin him down, maybe coming on the rise. Like, I'm sure he's like starting to reflect more on the past and realize, hey, maybe I should just kind of be in the moment. Like it's a time of maybe him to reflect, and so that maybe play part into it as well.
And I'm sure he probably does not want to discuss that with Crone, which
Yeah.
I find her to be a very obnoxious character. Even though we don't get a lot of screen time with her, she really, I don't know. Like, I love and hate her at the same time.
I don't think he wants to give her too much info because I mean, don't you think she just go tell Brood whatever he says?
Right, or patronize him in some way, shape, or form.
Fair.
She kind of, I don't know if you guys have seen The Princess Bride, but she kind of reminds me of the old lady that's like the wife of the Miracle Max that they go see in the movie. Just this super old, cranky woman that has like a scratchy voice and yells at everybody.
Huh. It's been a while since I've seen that movie, but based on your description, I can see it.
I don't know that I've ever seen all of it. I know I've seen bits and pieces.
It might be my favorite movie.
I mean, mine is Dumb and Dumber. I can't really talk, so.
I've never seen that one.
Oh,
A cinematic classic.
yes. Yeah.
I think I tried to watch that one, and I thought it was too dumb at one point. So I was like, I can't take this right now. This is like, I need to be in the mood for this.
It's so like clever.
It is very, very highbrow humor for sure.
Yeah. Did you know that in the opening sequence, all of the roles for the film are spelled wrong? Like, director is spelled with a K, producers got like an extra O in it. It's funny, like, and it's just that small shit that you pick up on, and you're like, huh, that's clever. So
Yeah. No, I definitely need to watch it again. It's on my list, but I definitely don't think I was in the mood, because I was like, all right, this is not my wheelhouse right now.
yeah, when I was in college, all my friends and I, we would just quote it. It was Anchorman or something, The second thing that I had was like this whole prepare for the joining of Warrens stuff. I'm not really too sure what to make of that. I'm assuming it has to do with Carald Galen and Starvalad Delane. What exactly that means, I don't know.
Do you think it's like, and Nate, maybe you can answer this, but it's like, damn it, and I'm forgetting the term, but like in Wheel of Time, where the Aes Sedai, they like link up.
That's a good way to think of it. Is it's them joining their power together for one thing.
So it's literally at face value the way that it's said.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Fair enough.
So they're really going to fuck your shit up if they do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, 40 of them were able to destroy a god's realm. And so Corlett says, well, all 1,100 of us could like fuck up the entire continent, which is wild to think about.
So it's like the nuclear option then. Times probably like 10.
Yeah.
But I guess at the Tistiande, like, I went lesser is not the right term, but as far as like the soul thing and the ability to use Warrens, a lesser version of what Quickbend can do. Like, can they access both Warrens? Like, I know the Starvalad Demelane is like the Warren of the Dragons, from which I understand the Tistiande kind of commandeered it. So,
I mean, all I can say on that is Raffo.
cool. All right. I know it has something to do with High House Dark. Something. All right. Well, I'll move on. Yeah, but kind of tying up the last of this section here was your comment about the 1,100 and the nuclear option, as Derek was saying. But I just thought it was a nice little like tidbit of information, and I kind of love how we get some clarity on the events that happened with the crippled god, and I get a really bigger picture of why he's pissed, right? And to like top it off, he's likely the only one left from his realm. which I would imagine is why he's so hell-bent on vengeance, right? Like he's literally the only one left in his universe.
Yeah, and then they chained him to the earth and left him there.
Right. Yes. Which was fucking dumb. I don't know why the hell. I guess we'll read and find out on that one too.
Yep.
I don't know why he's so mad though. And after all that, it seems like he should just be like, "Fine, I'll relax and do nothing." Then, you know,
Yeah.
I mean,
like he
It's-
could
it's
just
only
take it
been
easy.
It hasn't even been 200,000 years. It's only been a little over 100K. He should be over it by now.
right.
Well, what is he complaining about?
Yeah, just get over it.
Whiner.
Yeah.
It's just a whiner.
Oh man, that's funny.
All right. Well, I could read this unless anybody else is dying to jump in and take it here.
Go for it.
Go for it. All right. I won't badger you anymore. The Maibi dreamed again of the tundra. As she walked, she had no pain. As she breathed the cold air, there was no rattle deep in her chest. She realized she was back to where her daughter was born. She realized it was the Tellan Warren, so it wasn't so much a place as it was a time when the world was young, and so was she. She looked at her body and thought she was young, as she should be, but this was no gift. It was torture. She knew it was a dream and knew it would fade when she awoke. She looked to the ground and saw footsteps, thinking that they were blood and flesh eye mess. She wondered if it was Pran Cole and his companions that walked her dream or someone else. She awoke from the dream, old and frail again. She whispered, "Spirits of the Rivi, take me now. I beg you. End an end to this life, please." Her cry to the spirits went unanswered. She sat up and dressed herself. As she walked out into the early morning, the Rivi camp was awakening around her. She heard the ritual greeting of the dawn. Uruth met in all Barku sen Nataral. Aritan, Uruth met now. The Maibi did not sing alongside her kin. She had no joy in her heart, no desire to live another day. A voice spoke to her, saying he had just the thing for her. It was a small wooden box. The Maibi hesitated and forced a smile, saying she was reluctant to accept the gift based on past experience. He said Faith is another mistress whose loving touch he appreciated, and within the modest container is a treasure he offers to her. She thanked him, but said she has no use for treasures. Krupp opened the box, and she saw what appeared to be flint blades, but as her eyes adjusted, she realized they resembled flint blades, but were made of copper. Krupp said they were not tools, but objects to be worn on the body and would ease the aches of her body. Copper was the first gift of the gods. She wiped the tears from her face and thanked Krupp, and said they could not guard against old age. Krupp said his story was not over, and that they knew who each of the ornaments belonged to, dug up from below Darujistan. Jagan, Serental, Manik, who Krupp felt an affinity towards since he was also a runt and a trickster, and Iruth. The Maibi was at a loss for words, thinking this was impossible, but Krupp told her it was indeed true. The Rivi spirits were once flesh and mortal. He expected to see her wearing the adornments later in the morning. In her days and nights to come, she should hold to the faith. The Maibi could say nothing as Krupp held out the box and she took it. She wondered how he knew this morning of all she would be struggling. As he walked away, he stopped and turned, saying, Faith has a twin. Her name is Dreams. She wondered who she crossed in her dreams that night.
Ooh, spooky.
So in our little break here, I guess I don't know if you guys reread this chapter at all, but I did not. So I still remember this part pretty well. It always helps when you read what you wrote, I think. But yeah, we'll see what I can get from it.
Yeah, I have distinct memories of reading this scene for the first time. This scene here with Krupp and the Maib is the first time in my first read through that I was like, maybe I can get behind Krupp, like fully behind him. Because my first time reading this kind of came out of nowhere for Krupp. He would give such a tender and thoughtful gift, but rereading the series, I think it makes total sense for his character, and I love this scene a lot.
Oh, wow, that's really cool to hear. It does seem, he always kind of seems a little selfish and just full of self-interest from what I can remember of reading him so far. And so this definitely seemed like the opposite of that, right? Like, it doesn't seem like there's any strings attached to this gift, at least not that I can see yet, but maybe there are.
Yeah, he seems to be genuine here. And my guess is that he was the person inside of the Mybe's dream. Like somehow it wasn't actually her dream, but his, because we do know that events take place within Corrupt's dreams. I don't know if that's like his thing or just like a talent that he possesses. It really hasn't been elaborated on by any sort of, lack of a better term. So I'm wondering if this was potentially just him luring into what he wanted to depict with her.
Yeah, that was one of my thoughts here, but I think Krupp was in her dream, and he's kind of alluding to it towards the end with his twin mistresses. I think that was his way of saying, yeah, that was me. And maybe she's questioning it a little bit, but isn't quite so sure.
How many mistresses does he have?
Too many to keep track of.
That's the perfect number. Too many.
I don't know.
Anytime he needs a new metaphor to describe another attribute that he has, it's a new mistress.
Hey, what I always say, or what rather my partner always says, when you got one problem, you don't go get another.
But remember, he is married to truth.
Right. And a threesome with honesty and integrity or something like that. Right?
Yep.
I don't have anything else to say.
I'm a softie for the Mybe storyline. It's incredibly sad and quite the interesting take on like motherhood. And Erickson has stated before that what his intention with the Mybe was is to take postpartum depression and make it real, like make it a physical representation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, I can see that. I mean, yeah, I definitely don't feel like there's a happy ending to her story, and if for some reason if there did turn out to be this 180, and she got a happily ever after, it would almost just feel like a slap to the face.
Yeah, but we're all secretly hoping that she gets one, because you just can't help but feel empathy for this character. I don't know. I feel like out of all of the characters so far, like in just up to this point, including the first and second book, the Mybe is the one that's pulling on my heartstrings the most.
More than Fellison?
Yes, I think that Felisin, it was always like a back and forth, with her. Like, I feel like there would be some redemption. I also, enjoyed kind of the character that she ended up turning out to be in her own mind, so to speak. But her journey there was really rocky. Whereas the Mybe, it's pretty consistent, like I always just feel bad for her because I think as people, as humans, we all think of mortality at one point or another, and being able to empathize with what this character is going through in our own thoughts and our own observations is really what, again, pulls those heartstrings.
Yeah, I'd empathize too, and I feel like Felice, and she hit rock bottom, but it almost seems like the Mybe lives there, where Felice just had a couple visits.
Right.
It's like the scene in Batman where Bane's like, "You adopted the darkness or whatever, but I was born in the darkness."
Mm-hmm.
Except this is what depression. Maybe he's just like, "No, I just live here. This is my home."
Now, see, Matt, you got that wrong. It's Anamander Rake who was born in darkness. Okay.
That's true. I'm getting my franchises mixed up. My characters. Sorry, guys.
Hey, you're fine because you're right here with us. So we know as well. As much as each other, except for you, Nate. But
that was a total joke. That was a bad joke.
No,
it was a good one though.
Yeah, it was good. It's almost like if this world that we're talking about were to be superheroized, right? Really, what a dragon is just a bigger bat, right? So he'd be Dragon Man.
There you go.
No, I think Kalam would be Batman.
Yeah.
That's true.
He does have those particular set of skills. Not to bring another franchise into it, but
so who would Quickben be? Is he like Inspector Gadget?
Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange.
Ooh,
be good.
Yeah, I could see that. It feels like that could work.
Who would the Flash be? Beneth?
Crickets, Justin. Sorry.
All right. It's all good.
I was trying to think of a super fast character, but
I feel like it would be like someone who travels Warren's like nobody's business that just kind of pops up out of nowhere.
There we go. Hairlock.
They're like, yeah.
The Flash.
Or the caravan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone else.
All right.
Well,
Anyways, I don't have much more to say on this.
that was a nice tangent. A couple of my thoughts here, where it says might be woke from the dream. It just made me think of Wheel of Time
Oh, yeah.
and Aiel waking from their dream, which was actually just dying. So, yeah, it just maybe the line it drew me back to it. That's all. The Maibi, when she didn't sing, she had no joy in her heart, no desire to live another day. I'm like, geez, that's harsh. That's tough.
Yeah, it's hard for me to remember that she's like 20 instead of a bitter old woman.
Do you imagine her as 20 or do you imagine her as old and
so I imagine her as a super old, decrepit woman, which that's what she looks like. But because that's the image that's described about her, I forget that she's like literally 20 to 25.
Have you guys seen the video of Ricky Gervais interviewing this like 100-year-old woman in Britain? This lady is the Maibi. Now that I'm thinking about it, because I mean, it's like, so this lady, she's like 100 years old. She might have been older than that. And she's like, and he's like, oh, how does it feel to be, this old? And she's like, it fucking sucks. I wish I was dead. Every day's the same, like my family's all dead, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, you got to meet the queen. Like, yeah, she's I won't say the word. Something like that. That might not be it for verbatim, but yeah, I would assume if you Google like Ricky Gervais interviews old woman, you probably find it. It is good for a laugh, but at the same time, you're like, man. And that sentence sums up that woman perfectly. This woman had no desire to live another day in this video, and she made that pretty apparent.
What I would like to know is this like tomb or whatever it is that they uncovered below the city of Darujistan. I really hope that gets explored more. I feel like that was just kind of thrown in there. And while Erickson usually has a purpose for things, I hope it's not that small chance that there isn't a purpose and that it's just that, like I feel like this is bigger than the bone phone. I can understand why the bone phone doesn't make another appearance because like whatever, but for whatever reason, like maybe it's just my affinity for like lost cities and uncovering things. Like I hope this makes a comeback, or this gets explained, or she wants to see it for herself or something.
I am in the same boat. Anytime I read anything in the series that's like ancient history, I'm like, all right, where's the side story on this then? Like, where's just the huge compendium of like all these ancient civilizations and stuff? I just feel like some of these things will never be explored, and it makes me sad. But I'm like, I kind of think the same things. I'm like, you just told me there's a whole ancient city buried beneath this other really amazing city with all this ancient stuff, and you're just kind of brushing past it. Like, here's a gift. It was from an ancient city. Let's move on.
Well, I feel like it's not too spoilery. Is that something that makes an appearance, Nate?
Let's see. What you will learn a lot more about the history of Darujistan and that area of Ginabakis.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So through proximity, so to speak, you will recollect the scene when uncovering those.
Yes, I would say so.
Like recollecting Soul Taken and Divers to the correct ritual, that type of thing. I'm surprised nobody is laughing, but that's fine. That was a knock at Derek and I, which I told you.
Yeah.
Nate, but yeah. Okay. All right.
See,
No.
I think that one's an understandable mistake because there's you've heard about these two giant rituals, and it's Talanai Mass and then the shape-shifting one. I feel like it's pretty easy to get them mixed up.
Yeah, and there's more of an emphasis on the Talan one, so
Yeah, that's like the ritual. Like,
yeah, the ritual
Yeah.
of the First Empire I totally fucking missed. Did you get that?
I don't
Matt?
think we ever would have caught that if it wasn't explained for us.
Yeah, Jan's a god. I'm just gonna say that. But yeah. Anyway, we can move on to your next segment. I'm done making fun of us.
You're good. My last point, because we already talked about the other two with the dreams and stuff, but copper was the first gift of the gods. I mean, it feels like that's important to me, but I guess we'll see if that comes up somewhere down the line.
Well, I mean, we've had little instances of why this would be important, right? I mean, talks about his dislike for sorcery all the time, and it's because what? Humans figured out how to make shit. Metals, stone, kind of that like natural progression of history. You know, you go from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age, right? So you're essentially replacing tools and things with a more longer lasting material, more shapeable material, etc., more moldable. So I think that's kind of why it would be considered a gift from the gods, like the first, maybe not even really the first gift, but just a gift in general.
Yeah, it kind of have you guys seen the video, The History of the Entire World, I guess, on YouTube?
No.
It's one of my all-time favorite YouTube videos. It's like a 21-minute video that animated that this guy spent like 2 years on, that goes
Holy
over
shit.
like the history of the world, and he just jumps around, and it's super quick, and there's jingles and stuff. And but one of the things in there is like, tired of using dumb shitty copper, use tin. And then later in the video he has something like, tin not good enough for you anymore, you can try iron now.
Just YouTube, The History of the World.
I guess.
The History of the World, I guess,
I
by
guess.
Bill Wirtz.
All right. I will probably watch that while I'm lying in bed trying to go to sleep.
Hey, there you go.
You know, got to get that blue light in before I go to bed. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that, but that's what I'm interpreting that as to mean.
Yeah, I didn't have anything else.
No.
I think I'm good.
All right. Well, then, if you're all good, I'm cool to move on.
Yeah.
I'll take this one because I made it lengthier than it needed to be, but it's whatever. All right. 85 leagues to the northeast, Picker leaned back against the grassy slope, squinting as she watched the last of the corals dwindle westward. Antsy was heard complaining about the coral ride. After some back and forth between the two, Antsy said that it was the captain's fault anyhow. Picker comes to Paran's defense and said that it wasn't fair to place blame on the captain, and that kind of talk could backfire. The plan was cooked up by none other than Whiskey Jack and Dujek, and if he felt like cursing someone, then to curse them. Antsy said there wasn't a way in hell he would curse those two. Picker told him to then shut the fuck up and stop his damn grumbling. Antsy tells her that for the way she's answered her superior, that she would have the role of duffer, today and likely tomorrow if he wanted. Picker says that she sure does hate short men with big mustaches. Antsy replies and tells her that since she's getting personal, she can also clean the pots and pans after dinner. And he had a real complicated meal in mind. Hair stuffed with figs. Picker comically says that he's going to make them eat Spindle's shirt with figs. Antsy did not react well to this, as he explained himself and what he had meant by hair. The journey had been grueling, with few and all too short stops for rest, nor were the Black Moranth much for company. They were virtually silent, aloof, and grim. Commander Twist and his quarrel was the only left that remained after being transported to the foot of the Bargast Range. The quarrels had taken them high into the frigid air, flying through the night. Picker ached in every muscle. She closed her eyes and listened to the sounds of her fellow bridge burners preparing camp and food supplies. At her side, Antsy sat muttering complaints under his breath. Heavy boots could be heard approaching and stopped directly in front of her. She opened one eye and Captain Paran was there. However, his attention was on Antsy. He informed the sergeant that Quick Ben had been delayed. He tells Antsy that he and his squad will provide an escort when Quick Ben arrives, so that the mage can catch up. Antsy says that they'll wait for the snake and then asks how long they should wait for the mage before trying to catch up. Paran says that Spindle assures the captain that Quick Ben will arrive sometime today. Antsy asked what they should do in the event that Quick Ben doesn't show up. Paran said that he will show. Antsy again asked the question. Paran groans and then marched off. Antsy turned towards Picker and asked her what they should do if Quick Ben doesn't show. Picker calls him an idiot. Antsy gets defensive and tells her it's a legitimate question. Corporal Picker tells him that if Quick Ben doesn't show, then that likely means something has gone horribly wrong, and they should all hightail it to somewhere far from the action. Antsy's red face paled and asked what has gone wrong, And why wouldn't he make it? Picker remarks that nothing has gone wrong, as sure as the sun was baking his brain. Antsy snarled and barked out orders to a couple of bridge burners that they were standing around watching them. He tells Hedge to get Spindle. Hedge points to Spindle on a nearby hill, examining an upside-down tree. Antsy makes a comment about the upside-down tree, to which Picker tells him to go check it out. Sergeant tells her that there is no point and tells Hedge to get Spindle and to do it double time. With some rebuttal, Hedge jogs up the hill, but when Antsy is no longer looking, he slows down to a steady walk. Antsy then asked where Blend was. Blend was right next to the sergeant and replied that she was right next to him. This startled Antsy, and he asked where she had been skulking around at. Picker calls Blend a liar, and she saw Blend striding up from the corner of her eye. Blend shrugged and said she overheard an interesting conversation between Paran and Trotz. Blend explains that Trotz had once been high-ranking amongst his tribe, thus the tattoos. He is to make contact with the white-faced Barghast with the aim of enlisting their help and allegiance against the Panian Domin. Picker snorted as if that wasn't obvious enough because of where they were dropped off. Blend continues on and explains that there's a catch, though, and that Trotz will likely make contact, and doing so without getting them all killed. However, it's likely that Trotz might end up fighting in a challenge or two. If he wins, then they all live, and if he dies, well, Antsy's mouth was hanging down, and Picker groaned. Antsy spins towards Picker and tells her to find the Barghast and tell him to start sharpening his weapons. Picker said, "Oh, really?" Antsy replied that they had to do something. A new voice was heard responding to Antsy's question. Antsy turned again and greeted Spindle and explained that Trotz was going to get them all killed. Spindle shrugged and said that this explains all the agitated spirits on this hill. They can smell Trotz, he guessed. Antsy questioned the words smell and agitated, and then said that they were all doomed. One of the things that I really enjoyed about this section, as I feel like it's really a transitional a spot to kind of like maybe recollect your thoughts, but I really enjoyed kind of the chemistry between all of these characters. You know, I think that they definitely, I get the feeling that they've spent a lot of time together.
Yeah, definitely. The scenes with soldiers talking and soldiers' humor are some of my favorite, like, littler scenes in the series. Just because you think Erickson can't take the joke any farther, and then he adds another layer to it. Like with Antsy here, constantly getting paranoid at every new thing that's being said.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
I mean,
Blend, go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead. You weren't done.
Just like the soldier named Blend being the one that sneaks up on everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And then Picker going, you didn't sneak up. I saw you walking up there.
Do you think Blend is like some type of camouflage expert? Because I feel like this is not the first time where she's like done this.
You
know?
will learn more.
Okay, all right. But yeah, no. What I was gonna say is like I didn't even catch on to you saying about like the whole paranoid. I mean, it's right there. Like I'm reading it, I can understand that. But to just add that little level of detail and explanation is like, oh, okay, well that fucking makes sense. But even just the banter between Picker and Antsy about like the hair stuffed figs for dinner, you know, and
That was funny.
like, oh,
That's
we're
so
gonna
good.
eat Spindle's shirt with figs. That's not what I meant by hair, you know. Like that's how I can imagine he's reacting.
Well, and it's even more funny. This scene is more funny to me when you remember that Antsy's like full ginger and he's got a giant handlebar mustache.
It's like Dr. Robotnik or something.
There's a character. Oh my! There's a character in Looney Tunes that has a giant red mustache, and I always picture it as that.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That probably works better than Dr. Robotnik.
That's how I picture Antsy.
As Yosemite
With a
Sam.
big freaking cowboy hat.
I just love these like more transitional comedic scenes because I feel like it shows more of the like the ability these guys have in terms of like combat. Like they never feel like they're on edge about anything or like anticipating anything. I feel like it just shows like more the pacing of their battles, but as well like how confident they are. Maybe like I could be just totally blown smoke here, but like they're thinking like I feel like it shows how well they work together. Like I don't think any other group of soldiers would be laughing and making these kind of jokes without being like actually really good friends. Like they know exactly what buttons to push. They know how to bother each other. It's like they've been together for so long. So I feel like as well, it shows like the level of skill they have.
It's like a good sibling,
Yeah,
right?
they got that rapport with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense. One of the other things that I thought was just this very brief comment about the Black Moranth being pretty silent, aloof, and grim. Apparently, according to Picker, they never take off their insect-like armor, which makes me think of the Wheel of Time, the Shanchen, how they have
Oh,
Yeah.
fitness armor, right? Sure, why I'm really picking that out. I feel like it adds just a little bit more of like curiosity for the Moranth.
I hadn't made that comparison in my mind at all, but that it seems like it fits.
Yeah, I agree. I think like just details like that, whenever I read them, I always think, wow, that's just more depth, slowly but slowly to build on these guys. Because I mean, from what I remember, there's not much we really know about them up to this point. So just like details like that, it just adds more of like, okay, builds the picture slowly of who they are. Because I feel like one of these days we're going to get a full kind of bigger, more clear reveal of who they are. But as of now, it's like building kind of that mystique just to see, I don't know, who they are.
Keeping it mysterious.
Right. Yeah. And I know we get a little bit more about Twist in this particular book than we have with any other Moranth up to this point. So I think that he's maybe slowly starting to explain the Moranth, or more specifically, some of their characters. You know, sometimes I almost forget that there are other colors, you know, to the Moranth. It only gets mentioned a few times in Gardens of the Moon. I have to keep that in my back of my head all the time. It's like, oh yeah, there's other colors. They do other things.
it's the Ajas from Wheel of Time.
Perfect. Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Except that the group, I almost said the black group, but that sounds kind of weird. But the group that has the color black in this series are the quote unquote good guys instead of being the evil ones.
Right. He stays away from those tropes, which is cool. The only other thing that I had is just you get a really good sense of the weariness that Picker is feeling, just kind of based on her description of how they got there. Which, when I first read the section, I was a little, it was a little jarring for me because I'm like, wait a minute, why are they going back to that? Oh, she's recollecting. Whereas I thought it was like actually happening. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I thought we were just talking about being punished for mocking your fellow officer or whatever. So
Yeah, writing on the quarrels doesn't sound too fun.
mm,
Up high in the Frigidaire on a giant dragonfly, pretty much.
does not sound.
I mean, as long as you're not bothered by heights, I guess, and I imagine there's not seatbelts.
I wonder how high they really go, though. Because, I mean, like, modern day aircraft go, what, 30,000 feet? So these guys can't be going nearly that high, but still.
A few thousand feet, maybe. I always pictured like 2,000 or 3,000 feet.
I mean, which is still plenty high.
I mean, enough
Yeah.
to still be able to breathe, you know, up there. So, but
True.
yeah, that's really all I had. Oh, wait, I did have one more thing. Is it just me, or does Antsy seem to have a better sense of things than Antsy does?
You said Antsy twice.
No, I said, does Picker have a better sense of things than Antsy does?
Did you? I
she
could have sworn I heard
absolutely
you
does.
say answer Antsy twice.
Yeah. I feel like their roles should be switched.
I mean, maybe.
Were you going to say anything else? I kind of cut you off there. I apologize.
No,
Okay.
no,
Well, not anymore now, Justin. Jeez.
no. I was trying to think of a response to that, and all I could think of was maybe. So, but no, Antsy is the paranoid idiot. That's who he is.
But sometimes the paranoid ones aren't that crazy.
I feel like he's just really, again, I always go back to this argument between realism and pessimism. So I don't know if he's just kind of like being realistic about the situation, especially kind of at the end there when he's like, oh shit, we're all doomed. The spirits smell them and are agitated by it. Oh, great. You know, like I've seen this before.
Yeah, I do think it is meant to be played for laughs. Is like they're like, so what do we do if Quick Ben doesn't show up? Well, then we do this. Wait, so something's gone wrong? What's gone wrong? Why do we have to do that now?
Yeah, he just kind of seems like the character that is always expecting the unexpected, but isn't really prepared for the unexpected. Another weird thing about Ansi is this whole time I thought he was a girl, and that's simply because of
Oh,
the Gardens of the Moon when Paran first shows up at the compound at Pale, and he's like he's looking for Whiskey Jack, and I could have swore it was Ansi that answered or told him where Whiskey Jack was, but I could have swore that there were female pronouns associated with Ansi.
I mean, there very well could have been. I can think of a couple characters off the top of my head that just inexplicably switched genders during the series.
Like Erickson just forgot and then switched things up.
Yeah. One of the, I guess it's not super spoilery, but one of them he forgot and then realized it, but used that to turn it into something that makes sense. And then another is like just switching between this series and then one of the other books set in the world. And it had been so long since writing those books that he just forgot.
Gotcha. So is it kind of like the captain of the sappers in Dead House Gates situation, where he just forgot to write him in, so they just
Yeah, so he just I think Erickson is really good at just running with it. Whatever happens, he's just like, yeah, you know what? It lets me explore instead of
being bound by some imaginary walls.
Yeah, like the timeline.
When you got like as many characters as he does, I'd be thinking, well, that name sounds like this, and I would get myself so confused.
Yeah, that's all I got for that section. Not a ton.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like it was just a very straight through kind of a landing point, no pun intended, for the story to allow you to just take a step back and just enjoy some banter before moving on to maybe some heavier things.
Yeah, after a depressing dream, it was kind of nice to have them eating what's his face's shirt. I can't remember his name.
Spindle.
Spindle. That's right.
It's funny.
That's so-
His name is Spindle, and he's got a hair shirt.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
Well, and then Antsy is the antsy one.
Yep.
They all
We got
fit.
the 7 dwarves here.
Now it's all starting to blend. The camouflage.
Yep.
I get it. Aha. Picker of fights. That one.
Fiddler, because he happened to have a broken fiddle on his back when they were formed.
So Hedge, is he just like the Homer Simpson meme in the bushes or what?
Maybe he blew up a hedge.
Maybe.
He blew up a giant hedge to get into a city, and they were like, "Okay, that's your name."
Hedge. Oh, that's funny. Interesting. Okay. That's okay. I will keep that in mind moving forward. That was a very unintended aha moment. So I appreciate that.
That's what we're here for, to learn and aha to everything. That's how I feel every time I record with Nate. I'm like, oh, I see now. I see where this connects.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Hey, and sometimes we miss connections, Derek. Kidding.
We do.
All right. Okay, I'm done. I'm done making fun of us. Okay. All right. We can move on.
Well, Nate or Matt, would one of you guys like to take this next section?
I can take it.
Sure.
Okay.
Hopefully, I typed everything correctly and there's no spelling errors.
If I come across something, I can just say the line over again.
Sure.
As he stood with the rest of the bridge burners, Perron asked what had Antsy all worked up. Trotz, with his teeth out, said that Blend was there and had heard everything. Perron said, well, that's just fucking great. What are they going to do now? Trotz shrugged his shoulders and was silent. Perron spoke with Twist, asking if his quarrel was well rested. He wanted him high in the air, and he wanted to know the moment they were spotted. The black-helmed face swung to look at him, calling him noble-born, and said that they were already aware of his wishes. Perron said Captain would suffice, as he didn't need to be reminded of his precious blood. Also, how? And how the hell did he know that they knew? Twist said that they stood on their Barghast land, and below is the blood of their ancestors, the Moranth here. Perron said he was surprised they could hear anything in their helmets, but never mind, he still wants them overhead. Twist simply gave a nod. Perron took in his soldiers. He knew they were all veterans and wondered what it would be like to look up through their eyes instead of his, through the exhaustion that Perron was just barely being able to understand. He thought they would be soldiers to the end of their days. None would leave to try and find calm or peace. However, Whiskey Jack had said that once the war was over, the bridge burners would be retired, by force if necessary. Armies had traditions, and they had less to do with discipline than the truth of the human soul. Rituals shared at the beginning with every recruit and also at the end. A type of closure that was recognition in every way imaginable, and it was also necessary. Rituals were used as a way to cope with trauma. A soldier couldn't be sent away without any sort of guidance, abandoned and lost, no guidance to navigate something that had not a care for their lives. Perron wondered at what this really did. What did the once soldier become? Did they only serve as a reminder of the horrors and losses in the past? No, he thought it was about facing forward, like a respectful guide with a hand on the shoulder. Perron felt sadness within him, a constant feeling that was always ready to overtake him. He thought to himself that once the white faces showed up, it might be possible that every one of them could end up with slit throats, and he wondered to the queen if that might actually be a mercy. The flutter of the wings of the quarrel brought his attention back. He called the bridge burners to their feet. It was time to march.
Nicely done. Thanks for reading that.
Sorry for that bit in the middle there. My mind just went totally blank and I could not figure out how to read that fucking sentence.
No worries. I guess just listening to that, you read what I wrote. I know I had a hard time summarizing like this bit where it's talking about traditions and stuff. So I probably paraphrased a lot of that. But I guess my first thought, I just thought it was interesting that the Moranth can hear the blood of the Barghast ancestors calling. I don't know. I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, I feel like they're kind of on high alert based on what happened in the previous chapter, or chapter 6. Excuse me.
I don't remember what happened in chapter 6.
At the end there, where Boshalane and Corporal kind of commandeer the Jaghut spirit into their... Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they take the Barghast spirit. That's right.
Yeah, so I would imagine that didn't go unnoticed amongst the other Barghast spirits. So my guess is that they're all in a hubbub, so to speak.
All getting hot and bothered.
Mm-hmm.
That would also explain why they were agitated at the end of the last section as well.
Right. I mean, that's my headcanon around it, whether that's right or wrong. I mean, I feel like this just, again, ties a little bit into the previous section. We get a little bit more of the camaraderie. It's weird to think or anticipate the bridge burners like just dissolving like that. I don't think that that's going to happen. For them to kind of feel the sense of maybe some hope, retirement, like I'm done. You know, clearly they've been at this for some time. What specifically that would be, I mean, who knows? I can only imagine it would be, you know, retirement, essentially, what that life would look like.
Yeah. And that's also why Perron is thinking about like how hardened the bridge burners are and how he thinks that they're soldiers and they would not do well. And like soldiers in general tend not to do super well right after they go from war to peace, because even though the bridge burners are making jokes, super comfortable with each other, you know, there's a lot of like traumatic experiences underneath there. And I think maybe that's part of why they joke so much, is to hide some of that.
Right. Yeah. It's like their mask, their shield is humor.
I mean, they all went through the same stuff. They can understand it and know what it was like. Somebody else isn't going to know that.
Yeah. I think when Nate was reading this, I was just thinking like it's probably going to be a bit bittersweet for them, because I imagine they'll like kind of part ways, go back to, or try to go back to maybe the life they had before, if they had one, or to a career they had before. Like when you dissolve something like that, it would probably be just tough in general, just to be like, well, some of these people, like you've grown emotionally and just like shared so much of your life with them. That would definitely be really hard just to leave that behind, I think. So, I mean, yeah. I'm sure they would be like, finally, it's over. We can stop fighting. We don't have to worry about things. But at the same time, they're probably like, at the same time, it was kind of the thing keeping me going was just being here with these people.
Right.
Yeah, that's legit. Very well put, y'all. I don't really know if I have a ton for this section. I feel like it was just kind of an extension of the previous section, nearing off towards the end of the chapter, really.
Yeah, my thought here that I jotted down is they're talking about the queen. I assume it must be the Queen of Dreams. It's the only one I can think of.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree.
But that was all I had.
Other than that, Perron just continues to be depressed as fuck. Like he has that thought about we might all end up with slit throats, and that might be okay. It's like, whoa, okay there.
But instead of being outwardly about it like Antsy would be, he's just being stoic.
Yep. I feel like he's doing the classic commander thing of not letting himself get too close to the soldiers under his command.
Do you think that's going to backfire on him? I mean, you've read the series, so I mean,
Do you guys think it'll backfire?
I guess I've never really thought about it before, but yeah, I can see it going both ways. To have rapport with your team, I feel, is a mark of a good leader, whereas not having rapport is more of like, I'm your boss, do as I say, not as I do type thing. I will always lean towards not necessarily seeing myself as above somebody else or a team, but like getting down into the mud and dirt and doing the things with them, you know. I think that is how you earn respect in someone's eyes, because that's how I've respected managers and bosses before, ones that actually lead instead of just saying, you know, go do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know for like myself, even just like with a boss, like I'm going to have more respect for somebody who's either they've done the job too, or they get in there and get their hands dirty versus somebody who doesn't really know what it's like. They're telling you, you know, okay, go do this, but they don't like, you know, like you ever have like a boss where like they want you to do a job that they themselves have no idea how to do. I'm not about that.
Matt and I have both kinds of boss at our work right now.
Oh, well, lucky you guys.
Yeah, I was about to mention, like, I've seen just in general, like, people that know how to lead and then people that just know how to kind of delegate, but not really. And so I think with Piran, it can go, like, for his sanity, he may not want to get too close to them. He may want to just be in that kind of, like, ass down the chain of command type of thing. Because, like, if he does kind of get more emotionally involved, then that's where it's, like, makes it hard to live after that, I think. So, kind of both ways for him.
I also feel like Piran is his mind is preoccupied. And while it's not being said, we have gotten glimpses of his internal struggle, so to speak. What exactly that means or how that turns out, I can imagine that it is a weight on his shoulders that he doesn't know how to decipher. Some of these other things that may not be as important to him are being outweighed by what he's going through.
Yeah. And like 2 days ago, he found out he was the master of the deck and like one of the most important people in the world. And he also got 2 massive revelations about the Talane Mass and Caladan Brood. And so, yeah, he's got a lot going on.
A little bit.
Exactly. Well, I think that was a good discussion. Better outcome than I thought for this itty bitty little section here. But I don't know about you. I'm ready to move on if you are.
Yeah, I feel fine with that.
All right. This one's a lengthy one, so unless someone else wants to do it, I will happily read it. The dark, close air was filled with a sticky mist, a sickly mist. Quick Ben felt himself moving through it, his will struggling against its current. After a few more moments, he ended his questing and slipped into another warren. This warren fared slightly better. Some kind of infection had seeped in from the physical world, corrupting every sorcerous path he attempted. Fighting nausea, he pushed himself forward. He thought to himself that this has the stench of the crippled god, but yet the lands he approached were occupied by the Panian Domin. It was an obvious attempt at self-defense, but Quick did not believe in coincidence. There was a deeper truth. The crippled god may be chained, but he can feel the Ascendant's hand pulling at invisible threads. The faintest of smiles touched the mage's lips as he thought it to himself that this was a worthy challenge. He shifted warrens once again and found himself on the trail of something. A presence was ahead, leaving a strange and lifeless wake. He thought to himself that it wasn't a surprise as he was striding on the edge of Hood's realm. He suddenly felt uneasy, but managed to push it down. He discovered that Hood's poison was resisting the poison better than any of the others. The ground beneath him was clay, soft and damp. The haze filling the air felt heavy and oily. He slowed his pace, and the ground he came across was no longer smooth. Deep incisions covered the ground, glyphs covered columns and panels, primitive writing, and the wizard suspected. He crouched down and reached down. He said out loud to himself that it was either freshly cut or timeless. A faint tingle sent his hand withdrawing. He told himself that there were wards or binding, or that they were wards or bindings of some kind. Stepping carefully to avoid the glyphs, Quick Ben moved forward. He skirted a sinkhole that had been filled with colored stones. The incisions grew thicker and more crowded, forcing the wizard to slow his pace even more. It was becoming difficult to navigate on the clay floor. Bindings of loosely coiled power. Here on Hood's floor, a dozen paces ahead was a small object surrounded in glyphs. His frown deepened as he edged closer. Sticks and grasses on a round, pale hearthstone, like the makings of a fire. Then he saw it tremble. He thought to himself that these binding spells belonged to it, its soul trapped, as he once did to Hairlock. Someone's done to it. He moved as close as he could and then crouched. He told the figure that he wasn't looking well. The creature hissed and bargassed and said that the wards pursued him, thus closing its web and trapping him here. He can go no further. Quick Ben said that he sees and asks if he's from the White-Faced Barghast clan. The figure said that he still was. Quick told him that it had escaped its barrow and eluded the binding spells of its kin, and could he really expect that his kin would welcome him back? The small bundle of sticks said that he was ripped from his barrow, and that he can see that Quick Ben is traveling to the White-Faced clan, as he can see it in the mage's eyes. He says to the mage that he will tell the tale, so the White-Face know the truth of all of it, and Quick will need to tell them. He will give him his true name. Quick Ben said that this was a bold offer, but what is to prevent him from twisting the bundle of sticks to his will? The bundle of sticks snarled and said that Quick could not be any worse than his former masters. He says that his name is Telemandus, born of the first hearth of the Knotted clan, the first child born on these lands. He asks Quick if he knew the significance in that. Quick replied and said that he was not afraid. Telemandus said that his previous masters, the necromancers, had almost worked it out of him, almost found out his name. And if they would have uncovered the secrets that even his own people have forgotten. He asks the mage if he knows the significance of the upside-down trees on his barrow. He said that they hold the soul and keep it from wandering. Telemandus went on to explain that they came to this land from the seas. He tells Quick to look upon the face of a Barghast, one that has been stripped of flesh and muscle. Quick said that he's seen a Barghast skull before. Telemandus asked if he'd seen those skulls animated. Quick Ben said no, but he's seen something similar, something squatter, the features slightly more pronounced. The Barghast soul said slightly, but squatter? As if disproving this statement. He said this was no surprise and said that they never went hungry, as the sea provided. Moreover, the Tartheno Toplakai were among them. The mage puts it together that they were once Talani Mass, the ones that missed the ritual. Telemandus said that they did not defy the ritual, they failed to arrive on time. Their pursuit of the Jaghut had forced them to venture into the seas. In their isolation from their kin, they changed, and their distant kin did not. When they did find land generous enough to allow a birth, they would bury their boats. This is why the custom of trees on the barrows was born. Quick told him to tell the tale, but first a question. What would Telemandus do if he were to free him from his bindings? Telemandus said that he couldn't. Quick said that this was not an answer. Telemandus said that he would seek to free the first families, as the ancient bindings have kept them captive. Well meant, as this was, because they were worshipped by the living clans, but still, nonetheless a curse. They must be freed to grow in their true power. Quick Ben said so that they could ascend into true gods. Telemandus said that the Barghast refused to change, generation after generation. Their kind are dying out, and they rot from within. Quick asked if survival was a right or a privilege. The bundle of sticks and grasses said the latter, but it must be earned. Quick Ben held out his hand, palm up. He said it was a worthy wish, and a clump appeared in his palm. He said that there was salt in this clay. Clay is usually airless and lifeless. A writhing clump took shape on his palm. Quick Ben went on and said that the simplest of creatures could defeat the mightiest of sorceries. The worms, red like blood, fell in clumps on the glyph-strewn ground. Quick explains that these are native to a distant land and they feed on salt. They can turn the hardest clay into sand. To put it another way, they bring the air to the airless. The worms spread out and they started to burrow. They also breed like maggots. See those glyphs? They're on the edges. Their bindings are crumbling. Can you feel it, Telemandus? Can you feel it loosening? Telemandus asked, "Who the fuck are you?" Quick responded that in the eyes of the gods, he's just a lowly saltworm. Quick said that he would hear Telemandus's tale now. I liked that section.
I did too.
I was not
Yeah.
expecting.
Speaking of ancient history, right?
Mm-hmm.
I won't lie though, I completely forgot about that section when you started to read. I was like, did I skip this part? Did I just not read this portion? Then we got to the end and I was like, oh, now I remember it.
I feel like the explanation of Quick getting to the Telemandus is a little weird when you read it the first time, because you're like, he's born hopping, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the first things that I kind of at the time when I was writing this made me like really think is when he's talking about, or he's thinking to himself rather, there was a deeper truth. And my first thought was, so from what I've gathered from Gethel and his like sudden lust for vengeance and what was revealed about the House of Chains, I can only assume that the Jaghut themselves have a lust for vengeance against the Talani Mas. Is it possible that the crippled god has raised the Jaghuts back from the dead, or their spirits perhaps, which may coincide with the spirits up and disappearing at the end of chapter 5 when Whiskey Jack and Quick Ben were talking? Also, Panion was said to be a Jaghut word by Pran Cole, so it seems to make sense to me and kind of an easy game to get what the crippled god wants, right? Throw these worthy adversaries in the face of this coming ritual, or this second gathering. So that's just kind of what I thought about it, whether that's right or not. I know that at the end of chapter 5, they say Rivi spirits, but I kind of almost feel like these cultures are all connected in some way based on kind of what gets revealed a little bit later in the section. Is it far-fetched to think that the Rivi weren't Imas that didn't make the ritual for whatever reason? Or even potentially Jaghuts?
I can't say anything here.
Well, Matt, Derek, what do you all think?
So as you're talking, it made me, and as you're reading it, it made me think like sort of along those lines, but I was thinking more like the crippled god obviously has to be with the Panion Domin or whatever it's called. But like it makes me wonder more of what he practices, like what's his thing, because obviously it's like rotting away at things, and it just makes me think of like the cannibalism that we see and that they've talked about, and just like kind of like the crazy bizarre things. So I mean, when you mention that, I don't think that's far from the truth. I think he's just trying to find like very emotionally charged groups of people that like are willing to kind of follow anything to kind of find their own way to get a source of power or put themselves in charge or kind of push away their enemies. Because I mean, this continent, the Malazans have been trying to take it over for a hot minute. So maybe these guys are thinking like, hey, maybe we get rid of them and we can be the new people in charge. And the crippled god is just using them as a tool just to further his purposes while they think they're doing their own thing. So
right,
I definitely think it's a possibility.
I think there's a distinction to be made, though. I don't think it's so much that the crippled god is with the Panion Domin. I think it's the other way around. I feel like that's important just because I feel like the crippled god's probably the bigger deal. Like, you guys are going to fight for me. I'm not fighting for you, that type of deal. I definitely agree that they're linked somehow. I do think maybe which way it goes is important, though, too.
What kind of seems like the crippled god is feeding on tragedy, and granted, we don't have a lot of history on a lot of these elder races, so to speak, but I would imagine that what we know about the Talan, I mean, there's 2 instances where they have essentially attempted genocide, right? Like with the Soul Taken and then with the Jaghut. The Soul Taken were a problem to the Talani Mas, from what I can understand from chapter 7 and kind of my new understanding of the correct turn of events, but as well as the Jaghut as well. So, I mean, what's to stop them from doing that with anybody else? Who's to say that the Kachin Shamal, well, I guess the Kachin Shamal were, extinct long before the Jaghut. I feel like they don't mention Talani Mas, but so it could be the Talani Mas's ancestors that maybe took them out. I don't know. He's feeding on tragedy, and thus is the House of Chains, right? Like he wants flawed and, as you said, emotionally charged characters on his team to be entered into this realm's game,
Yeah, and I think Derek makes a good point that like it's not he's fighting for them, but like he's just kind of using them. Is that kind of how you were phrasing it? Like, I definitely think he's doing his own thing, and this is just another piece to the puzzle of him trying to cause chaos.
Yeah, I mean, because I think he could probably do plenty of damage on his own. Obviously, like he can. It sounds like he could end the world if things go far enough. So the Panions are maybe just speed things up some. So they're there, so he's going to use them.
Yeah, like a catalyst to get things going.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting conversation. I like this. One of the things that I thought was cool was when he kind of unveils and discovers that Hood's poison is resisting better than any of the other Warrens. And I mean, like, that's not new information. We know that. But a thought that I had is it resisting the poison better because regardless of the realm, death exists everywhere kind of a thing?
I was kind of thinking that a little bit, but I was just thinking like maybe it's because Hood's realm is just so full of beings, like maybe that's a form of energy or something that kind of pushes back because maybe some of the other Warrens aren't filled enough with like power to resist it. Like, yeah, they may be it may be a powerful Warren or something, or there may be a couple powerful beings, but compared to Hood's realm, the guy's loaded. I mean, you know how many people are going there all the time? So it's like, I think that may be part of it. Like, he's just so big. Like, I mean, if you think about it in that sense, it's like, it's just so big, so it's going to resist it longer, or maybe that as well. It's like death is just a part of everything. But I feel like the crippled god has kind of a piece in death. Like, he feels corrosive and feels like he rots away at things. So I feel like even that realm, he would just completely erode away into his own thing, maybe.
Oh, so kind of like an ink stain on a single piece of paper versus a stack of paper.
Yeah.
I like that.
Interesting analogy there, Justin. I've not heard that one before.
It's the artist in me. That's all.
All right. I'll give it to you.
So, yeah. The whole filled with color, like this sinkhole that he came across that's filled with colored stones. I thought it was cool because I think Quick Ben alludes to their prayers from like many different languages, which, I mean, makes sense, right? I mean, he's the god of death. He's indiscriminate when it comes to who is dying, you know?
I really like Quick Ben's thought after that too. Like, manhood, your Warren is a shithole. Like, all those clerks that have died, why don't you just get them to clean the place up?
I don't remember that, but that's funny.
That happens like right after the colored stones thing. Just
I think now that you mention it, I wouldn't have if you didn't.
Yeah, like, man, your home is messy, Hood.
Yeah.
It's frequently traffic. So, I mean, all the people coming in and out, he's probably like, what am I going to do? It's just going to get dirty again.
You could, like, at least take your shoes off before you come in.
It's like after you clean a litter box, like the cat just goes right in and pisses and pees in it, or poops and pees in it. You're like, God damn it, I just fucking clean this. So
definitely true.
One of the other things that I thought was really cool is I loved the way that Telemandus was described. Having an acorn for head, and then imagining like sticks for bones, and then like the grasses is like muscle, sinew, tendons, or muscle, sinew, tendons, and skin. It was just It was cool to imagine that.
Yeah, literal stick figure.
Right. I wonder if that's a knock on people who, and again, kind of like an art thing, but a lot of times that I hear, they're like, "Oh man, you're so good. I can't even draw a stick figure." So I'm wondering if like maybe that's inspiration for that. I doubt it, but you never know.
It's interesting. But yeah, again, a cool thought.
Obviously, we know that Telemandus's previous masters were Boshelane and Corporal Broach. I figured that I would point that out. I also kind of get the feeling that they tortured the spirit. It's not really like given any specific details, but it kind of makes it seem that they tortured him to get, like when he says he almost found out his name, or they almost found out his name, and that had almost worked it out of him, makes me think that they were not nice about.
Oh, I'm sure they were.
Oh yeah.
I think in that chapter, is it Boshelane? I think he makes a comment about like, we were so close to getting that spirit's answers, and then the demons attacked and he got away.
Yeah, I remember that. I guess what is Boshelane and Corporal's play there? Why do they need to know that information? Just because they're researchers? So, you know,
They're
Weird.
just curious about everything. Like they asked Gruntle about the Jagut and Animander Rake and the Malazan Empire, and they're just like they're travelers. They like seeing other cultures.
yeah, I feel like they're a little nosy though. Don't have the nicest of intentions.
Well, I mean, they definitely have ulterior motives for sure. Like, I don't know what they are, but like they got something up their sleeve.
Hmm.
I mean, you can't be a necromancer and a demon summoner by being nice dudes.
Yeah.
That's like the best way
Fair.
to put it.
Because I mean, maybe I'm mistaken in how I remember this, but like when they're asking for like help with their caravan, they're talking to the caravan people, like they kind of scared Gruntle by some of their comments, like, and they're just so casual about it. I remember that, and I was like, these guys are just unsettling. Anytime they come up, I'm always like, what are they going to do? Like, I'd never feel like there's a clear answer of what they're going to do or what their aim is, which I mean, in terms of storytelling, that's awesome because then you're just like more engaged of like, who are these guys? But they pop up frequently enough that, and infrequently enough that I'm just like, these guys just keep weirding me out. Like, what are they doing? Like, it's a necromancer. So I feel like a necromancer is probably trying to figure out some way to bring back like an ancient power, maybe, or like figure out like a way to live longer. And the demon dude's just there to summon an army when they need it. I don't know.
Fair enough. No, those are good thoughts. I like that. They're just such a mystery to me, and I can't quite put my finger on them. But
I cannot wait to read the wiki at the end of these 10 books on them.
Well,
yeah,
to get the full story on Beauchelain and Corbel Broach, you're gonna have to go to the Beauchelain and Corbel Broach novellas.
Which we're going to do.
yep. After this book, we're gonna start Blood Follows. I think it's only like 97 pages. It'll go quick. I feel like that'll be like 5 or 6 episodes tops.
Guess we'll see when we get there.
Yeah. Moving on to probably my favorite part of this section. When they're talking about traveling with the Tartheno Toblakai, describing the shapes of the skulls, thing like that. And then he explains that they were forced into the seas to venture into the seas in pursuit of the Jaghead. And in their isolation from their kin, they changed, and their distant kin did not. So, am I interpreting that Toblakai and Barghast were both amassed then? Both missing the ritual in some way, shape, or form? But because of separation from chasing the Jaghead, Toblakai were the ones that changed, and the Barghast did not. Or the Toblakai evolved, or am I mixing that up? Am I close?
Raffo.
Fuck!
I mean, it could just be more cultural in some aspects as well. Like, it could just be like they chose a different path. But I mean, I don't think you're wrong in thinking maybe they missed something. I
do love Telemandus' explanation. Like, no, we didn't defy the ritual. We just didn't make it on time. We slept late.
Well, I mean, you gotta imagine that the oceans are probably, filled with ice, right? Have you ever watched like a cruise liner trying to get through ice? It takes a long time.
Or you sink.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Titanic.
Oh, Titanic.
Yeah, that and the Malazan world is about the size of our own, probably a bit bigger. So that's a long way.
There's a lot of ocean space then.
But can you confirm that the Toblakai and Barghast are like the same?
They're not the same, but they're related, and that's about all.
Okay. Related's good. I'll take related.
You got to take your wins where you can get them, huh?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then when he goes on to explain that when they find land generous enough to allow birth, they would bury their boats and kind of settle there, right? Is kind of what I took from that. Do you remember in chapter 7 when Ikovian was talking about the city of Capustan and its history? And he mentions the native Kapan and the Daru kind of nomading in from the west. They didn't mix, but he explains the natives to the city were a generation before were nomads. And because of Capustan being on the River Caitlin, that the native Kapan were likely seafarers, which is what Telemandus is saying here. So I just thought that was super cool. And is it possible that they likely built the city around Prince Jalarkin's palace, as that was said to have existed before the arrival of the Barghast/Mass? I don't know what I was talking there, but I know
it's only been a little bit.
Right, yeah. We get a lot of like history of Capistan in very like little fragments. And Prince Jalarken's tower is explained a lot. So I think that
How odd it is, yeah.
to summarize my rambling note here is that it seems that these Barghast, right, were settling in that area. Some of them became native Japan. Some of them probably moved to the hills, right? And then the Drew came in to habitate it as well, is my understanding of that. Or they were driven out by the native Kapan to the Barghast range.
No answers for us, Justin.
Sounds good.
No answers, but Raffo.
The other thing that I thought was really sad to think about was when Telemandus kind of explains like what he would do, and he would seek to free the first families. And it's just, while the Barghasts have good intention, but souls being captive by bindings and the upside down trees and the wards and thing like that, it just kind of seems like they're just stuck in a purgatory. So it's almost like the Barghast are shooting themselves in the foot by not allowing the ones that pass to ascend, thus probably stifling them. And the reason why they haven't grown as a culture while they're just stagnant is because they're not learning anything new, because they have no spirits that have moved on to learn new.
Yeah, I think that was a really good way to say that.
Cool. I don't suck all the time.
I
Nobody
thought you
thinks
said
that,
you were
Justin.
done making fun of yourself.
I know. This is what I do. I open the door and shut it on myself. The last thing that I had was I loved how Quick compared himself to the saltworms, destroying the wards and the what else did he call them? The glyphs that were holding the Telemandus. Because I mean, yes, he's totally that in the eyes of the god. He's a lowly little saltworm. 13 or 11 saltworms trapped within him. And,
No, see, to me, when I read that this time, that he's just a lowly saltworm, my first reaction was to go, fuck off, Quick, because we've seen him have straight up conversations with Shadow Throne and the crippled god and like a servant or something of Burn. And so it's like,
yeah, he's.
I was like, yeah, the gods have taken notice of you, Quick Ben.
At the same time, I think though, like he does try to keep the gods at bay and be like,
yes,
they know about him, like about the existence of him, but like they're gonna be focused on other things. Like I feel with Rake, it was kind of that way. He's like, I exist, I'm a mage, and Whiskey Jack's like, yeah, he's kind of a special mage, and Rake's like, okay, cool, we'll just keep him in our peripheral vision, like we don't have to worry about him then. Like they know enough about him to be satisfied, but they don't know like the full extent as well. I feel like that's maybe what he's thinking. But
going off of what you're saying is that I think the gods think that they're compared to these glyphs and these bindings, right? Whoever created these glyphs and bindings have all of the confidence in the world that they're going to do their job. However, the smallest of creatures, these like little red worms, right, bring the fresh of breath air into what is airless. The smallest things can take down even the most confident being, I think is kind of where Matt and I are going along with that.
yeah.
So, but Nate, you've seen the true power of Quick Ben. We've only seen a third of it. So
Yeah.
I think maybe a good way to put it is that Quick wants to have his cake and eat it too.
yeah,
He wants to play these games with the gods, but he doesn't want to be noticed.
Yep. And like I think you bring up a great point, Nate. Like I didn't even think about it that way. Of just like you literally talk with Shadow Throne, revealed who you are, and dipped out. And then like he has a conversation with Burns, like servant, and is like being tasked with like kind of delivering the message. And then he talks with the crippled god and barely managed to escape. So it's like it's not like these are gods that are just kind of more minor kind of players. These are like the big kind of like we see them all the time because they're obviously doing stuff. And so like at the same time, I think he isn't playing it too quiet.
head honchos.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Well, that's all I had for that last section there.
I thought we had one more after that for some reason, but
Oh, same.
it's all right.
Yeah, that's the end of it, I think.
Yep, that is the end of it. I have a question for you, Nate, and you
Okay.
will probably end up being a Raffo answer. Hairlock in the Warren of Chaos. Does that have anything to do? Is it a possibility that Hairlock was working for the Panion Domin in Gardens of the Moon?
Not the Panion Domin specifically. I think Hairlock was doing his own thing, and I think him going through chaos a lot influenced him. No, Hairlock was doing Hairlock's thing.
Okay. Does he get brought up more? Like, do they speculate on him, or is like this is the last we've seen?
No, Hairlock's dead and gone.
I mean, yes, but like as far as do other characters speculate about his intentions?
He's dead and gone physically, but he's pretty much dead and gone for the story as well. You won't hear. I don't know if you'll hear anything else about Hairlock throughout the Book of the Fallen.
Gotcha.
That's fine. He's a dickhead. I didn't like him.
Me neither.
I mean, it's kind of nice to know that, as sad as it is, based on what Telemandus is saying about Boshaline and Corvo Broach and how he was snared. I guess maybe it's a little bit knowing that Quick Ben essentially did the same thing to Hairlock, maybe a little bit of redeemable redemption in our readers' minds that, yes, he was an asshole, but he was definitely stuck.
Might be an asshole, but he's our asshole. God damn it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. He might be an asshole, but he's an asshole that we see through his eyes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Funny.
I don't want to see out of that brown eye.
Ooh. Poopy.
Well, I guess what's next for you guys then? So you're going to do 9 through whatever?
So this episode will be 7 through 9. And then our next episode is actually...
Oh, that's right.
Our next episode is actually... It's going to be only about 90 pages total, so not a ton, but we're doing 10 through 13 our next episode so that we can finish up Book 2 of Memories of Ice just without having to do 2 episodes out of it, split it. We just want to do 4 chapters all in one go because that's fun.
Gotcha. So it sounds like we've got some shorter chapters coming up then.
Yeah, it's like 92 pages for the 4 chapters, I want to say.
Okay, that sounds manageable then. So, Matt, have you read the next chapter yet or no?
Yeah, we just recorded chapter 9, not last night, but the night before, I think.
Tuesday, yeah. We recorded
yeah.
about chapter 9 on Tuesday.
Because we were going to do it last week, but then holidays happened, so then we just pushed it to this week.
And I was sick as a dog.
That's true.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah, that's no fun.
Yeah, chapter 9 or chapter 8. Did we read chapter 9 or 8? No, this is 8.
This is 8.
Yeah. Chapter 9 was definitely interesting.
I have not finished it yet, so
Oh, okay. Well, then we won't talk about it.
that's what the next
Yeah.
episode's for, Justin.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah, but dude, when you get to the end, you let me know. When you read that last section in chapter 9, you best be
All right.
Ah, yes.
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess when I get home, when I get home from my parents, I'll do that because I feel like I'm the odd kid out. I'm missing out here.
Yeah, I read it yesterday at work because it was a little bit slower. So I just reread the chapter again.
I feel like I haven't read any of Malazan for so long. So when we were talking about some things today, I was like, when did we read that? That was a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a while. And we've had the holidays, and then my walls are bare behind me because I'm moving on Saturday.
Oh, well, congrats.
So-
I mean, maybe. Hopefully it's a good thing.
Yeah, it is a
Okay,
good
well,
thing.
then good. Good.
Finally moving out of my parents' basement. So
Well, congratulations.
yeah, it's just been busy, and we actually haven't released an episode in 2 weeks because I haven't had time to edit one.
Well, that's all right. It's when did you just set out our 4-hour one? It's been a little bit. It's going to be a little bit for us too, just because Justin has burned through our bank of episodes that we had with the holidays and me being gone, and I mean, having to record twice to complete one episode, it kind of put a damper on things. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to get to the rest of this book.
oh, gotcha. Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading more of this too. And when I have been reading anything, I've been trying to power through and finish Empire of Silence. And I've got like probably 70, 80 pages left now. And I'm just trying to get done with that book. So,
Almost there.
almost. Too much to read in one go, though. I can't power through it and finish it in one more sitting. Probably 2.
Yeah. Well, fellas, thanks for the 2-part episode.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, it was. Well, I'm sure that there probably won't be another time in the timeline where we'll match up on chapters as you guys goes speeding on by. Yeah, we'll maybe have to have you back for a wrap up, some sub book sometime.
Yeah, that would be
That'd
awesome.
be fun.
And then,
Yeah.
We'll definitely have to figure out a way to work together again. It was a good time.
yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
definitely.
And our shortest episode or shortest session, probably since our prologue of Gardens of the Moon, just a little over an hour.
Yeah, true.
Oh well, wait, no, we started at 8. Never mind. I don't know why
Yeah,
we
I
started
don't
at
know,
8. Cool.
Sweet.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having us on.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was a lot of
Absolutely.
fun. Good luck
Thanks
with
for-
the rest of the chapters.
Yeah, you guys too. I'll be looking forward to listening to your guys' episodes as I, complete the chunk that you guys have done. So I'll still get through them. It'll just be at a slower pace. So have fun, Matt. Enjoy it, and Nate. I
Well
guess you already know what's coming. So don't spoil
I'll
anything for us.
I'll enjoy every second of it.
Good.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, I guess enjoy the rest of your all nights.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
as
see
well.
you guys.
Easy,
See ya.
guys. See you soon.
DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's DMJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest.